Chunk 2, Day 1. Small amount of commentary. Yes, I've been digging for the last 3 days to get this chunk. But now I start a new problem. A new chunk. Except this time, I get efficiency 1. Also, this says chunk 2. Why am I in creative? Oh yeah, when I was setting up. Because setting up for this video took forever, and it's not just this video. It's like the next 3.5 months that I set up, because I have that planned for myself already. Because yeah, everyone does that. And commentary over.
Entitled mother is demanding the house. My entitled mother is demanding the house I'm living in that was given to me by my father who passed away. And despite walking out on my family 16 years ago, she's suddenly only coming into the picture so she can make a quick buck. And I honestly could not be more upset. Here's what happened. So a few years ago, my father passed away due to a sudden and short battle with cancer. My father and I have always made mistakes along the way, but I do believe he believed his intentions were good. Just the impacts he made were definitely not. He had a learning disability, and while I hold many scars, I hold no resentment towards him for making mistakes. We had talked about it a few times, and he did show remorse for the effects he caused, and we ended up growing closer because of the open and loving communication. My mom, on the other hand, left us when I was 8 years old for a different man in her life. This man treated me terribly, as well as my siblings and my mom, period, out of state, where I stayed with a friend, which was always intended as a temporary situation. Though I did plan to move into my own place when I came back, things didn't pan out with the pandemic. Shortly into the pandemic, my dad went to the hospital because he thought he had COVID, but it turns out he had stage 4 cancer, and they said there was nothing that they could do. He had the option of some treatments, but he declined them, and he passed away shortly after. He didn't have a will, but it was always his intention, according to his family, that the house would be given to me. One of my siblings is a STEM major in college, and the other married into a wealthy family, and I'm the youngest. So his intentions were to ensure that each of his children were taken care of after his passing. I've taken care of the house for 3 years and some months now. I've handled every bill. I've even gotten a roommate who is now a loving member of my family, as well as a partner who has moved in and has been helping me renovate the house. We've been making a home for our family in the home my father wanted me to do so in. It makes me cry often at how much I wish he could see the progress on the house and how much progress I've tried to make personally in growth. Fast forward to last month, and my mom is asking me for the mortgage account details all of a sudden. I was already sketched out as to why she would be asking for that, given that she lives across the country and only calls me really to complain about her sister when she's drunk and to berate me for being a lesbian. I called her and I asked her why she wanted the info, and she actually said to me that it was to prepare for when she comes back to the state and refinances the home. I stood there with my jaw dropped and I didn't even know what to say. 3 years of running this house that my dad left me, building a home for my family, and now my entitled mother was trying to say that the house is hers whenever she cares to come around and try and claim it. I've done some digging, and it turns out when they got divorced, my dad removed her from the loan, but never removed her from the deed. So once he passed, the county transferred ownership of the deed to her automatically, instead of into the estate like the rest of his assets. I know this is the standard procedure from what I can tell, but given the context of our family, she has no rightful claim to the house, I feel, only a legal loophole claim. My father was gravely emotionally wounded by my mother years ago, all because of the abuse that we endured, only for everything to come together with her cheating on him. He would not want her to have his home, but without a will and him gone, there's no one who can truly verify that, aside from getting statements from his family in civil court. I don't know why he never took her off the deed, whether it was a poor strategic decision in case he passed before our adulthood, or if it was a lapse in his memory. I should also specify she has a home already, but specifically, she wants this house. She and my dad bought the home in 2003, and she left in 2006, and has lived elsewhere ever since. She yelled at me saying she put so much work into this house, with her trying to claim some kind of ownership over it, despite the fact that she's never been there. She lived there for 3 years, all while cheating on my father, and has been gone for 16 years, but still believes she has a rightful claim to the house. Obviously, I'm already in the process of getting legal help. However, I just need to vent about this. It's been making me lose sleep, it's giving me panic attacks, and it's making me emotionally unstable. I went the way of finding my own family and being family-oriented in the context as a result of my childhood abuse. So I take it as a very serious responsibility and the purpose of life to protect and care for my family. And my abuser is now coming back to try and rip the home we've built up away from us. This house is the living image of my father. He worked countless hours in unimaginable labor to ensure this was our family home. I've always, since becoming an adult, had a large distance between me and my mother due to the things she's done, and I maintain contact mostly as a fear of what she could do if I went no contact. But if she goes through with this and tries to take this home, whether she succeeds or not, I will never forgive her for trying to destroy my family's home. Again, maybe I'm the one being entitled here, and my drive to protect my family and myself from her is overpowering my ability to think rationally. It's so hard to get 10 words into thinking about this without being overwhelmed. And how tragic is that? And now, out of nowhere, now that the dad has passed away, she wants to come in and claim this house, which is absolutely so low. I really feel so terrible for the original poster in this story. They've obviously found their own family, and they have worked hard to build up the house that they were given. And honestly, in your legal pursuit, I really hope you come out on top, because you've shown that you care for this house, and that this lady literally only came in to probably just make a quick buck and then leave once again. Like she has no interest in this home or anything like it. But you, on the other hand, absolutely do have an interest in this home. You want to build this up and keep your father's memory alive, and I honestly don't blame you for that. So hopefully all of this works out in your favor, because from the sounds of it, your entitled mother really does suck, and she absolutely, in my opinion, does not deserve this house. My ex-wife, after leaving me for 3 years, wants to come back into my life and help raise the 3 kids that she walked out on, all of a sudden out of nowhere, and I honestly don't know what to do. So for a bit of background, I'm a 40-year-old male, and I met my ex-wife, who's 39, in college when I was 19. We dated for 8 years, engaged for 2, and were married for 8. Before marriage, we had both agreed for not wanting any biological children, or children really in general. After we got married, we were still in agreement that children were not in our future plans. I even had a vasectomy to make sure that didn't happen. We were adamant on not having children. We wanted to live together, just the 2 of us. Everyone on both sides of our family knew of our decision, and though some of them insisted, later they didn't care as much anymore. So for 8 years, we were happy. Well, as happy as a married couple can be. Our communication was great. I mean, I believe that she was my soulmate. We were together a total of 18 years. I knew her like the back of my hand. I loved her with all my heart and soul. Then comes 2019. My sister and her husband unfortunately passed away in an accident, leaving behind 3 young children, aged 7, 5, and 10 months. It came down to a situation of who would take care of these kids. My brother-in-law had 2 sisters, but they had multiple kids of their own, so it didn't seem feasible. As for his parents, unfortunately, they were already deceased. That left my side of the family. My parents could have taken the children, but they are on the older spectrum and well beyond their child-caring days. So that left me, the only sibling. And of course, the other option was foster care. And you have to understand that there was no way in the world I was going to let that happen. So I took the kid options and why they weren't feasible and why I needed to take them in. My wife agreed that foster care wasn't an option when I was in a position to take care of them myself. However, she also said that she couldn't stay married to me once I took these kids in. This came as a shock and suggested therapy to get over this hurdle, but she declined. She said that she had therapy in the past growing up, and that is actually how she reached the conclusion that she doesn't want kids. So therapy was off the table. My wife left and got a divorce. We parted on amicable terms. The kids came to stay with me and have stayed with me for the past 3 years. In those years, I had to put my heart back together again. I had to be a father. Things weren't easy, but we're in a good place now. Fast forward to 2022, and my ex-wife invited me out for coffee coffee and asked if we might try again. Once again, I was incomplete, even went to therapy like I suggested, and she now wants to try and make this work again. Now, due to my profession and my new role as a father, I didn't have time to meet anyone. Honestly, I just couldn't. I wasn't ready to move on. But I was stunned and hurt, and the resentment from the past 3 years just came at me all at once. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to scream, but I just sat there. In truth, I can't say she completely abandoned me in the past 3 years. She would call every odd month, short conversations just to ask how I was doing, as well as how the kids were doing. She even bought them Christmas presents and would sometimes talk to them on the phone. Just shorter conversations, basically encouraging them not to give me too much trouble and that they should be good kids. The kids are familiar with her, but she hasn't exactly been a constant in their life. With her coming back and asking for another go, I don't know what to do. Do I still love her? Yes, absolutely. I'm still angry with her for leaving, and I still don't know if I want her in mine and the kids' lives. She's amazing, the best human I've ever met, but she hurt me deeply. She left when I wish she would hold on just a little tighter. I want her back, but is it the right thing to do? I'm a father now. I can't just think about myself. Do we just start over by getting back into dating? I mean, she might not like this new version of me. I have changed. I'm different now. I'm a father, and my priority is my niece and nephews. I'm so confused. I haven't been sleeping well. I wish that she wasn't such a decent human being so I could at least hate her. I wish we didn't divorce so amicably so that this could at least be an easier decision. I just wish she went to therapy sooner and that she had not left in the first place. What should I do? This is a messy situation because literally she walked out on you in one of the most distinctly impactful moments of anybody's lives. Like, these 3 kids were on the verge of going into foster care, and this guy was just doing the right thing to try and bring him in and say, hey, let's try and figure this out. And instead of being an adult and jumping on board, she just ditches him and says, okay, I gotta go. I mean, personally, that's just insulting. And now, after 3 years and you're finally settled into this role of being a dad, she suddenly wants to come back into your life and start dating and be involved again? I mean, what happened to her hating kids and not wanting kids at all? It's just incredibly unfair to you as well as those 3 kids who very easily could have had a female figure in their life that they could at least call mom. But this lady decided she didn't want any part of that. But it's also especially tricky because you know her and you do love her and you guys separated on good terms. It's not like you left and one of you hated the other person. These 3 kids need stability in their life, and unless she's willing to step up to the plate and be involved in these 3 kids' lives, I would personally be very uncomfortable with bringing her into the mix. My long-distance boyfriend lied to me for a year and a half about his living situation, and now I think I'm road. We developed feelings for one another. We spent hours and hours together every day on video calls. We met in person and spent 2 weeks together. I have always been super honest and open with him because I have been hurt so badly in the past. I told him all about it and how my greatest value lies in exactly that, being open and honest, as well as communicating and not playing mind games, not reading between the lines or anything like that. That was my main thing I was looking for, and I was very clear about it always, and I have always given him just that. The first week after I moved here was pretty terrible. It was stressful and sad, and I felt strangely horrible, like I sensed that something wasn't right. So after a week, we visited his parents, and I found out he has been lying about living alone for the entire time I've known him, and made up so many stories just to keep it a secret. He told me he lived in an apartment, was paying rent, and had some roommates, but he made all of them up. He made up one in particular, told me about his nationality and how annoying he was. He lied about visiting his parents every once in a while. He made up that they lived just about 15 minutes away from him whenever one of them with someone else, and so on and so on. So many little lies over a year and a half just to hide the fact that he was actually living at home with his parents. And the worst thing is that he didn't tell me about it, and I don't think he would if I didn't recognize his parents' place on my own. In fact, during our long-distance relationship, he never wanted to show me the apartment he lived in because he was so embarrassed that his roommates might see him. He told me how he was embarrassed, and even his friends didn't know about it. But now I found out all of his friends knew, and I was the only one he lied to. So that was another lie right there. So now I'm questioning everything I have ever known about him, because if he kept this a secret and lied about it since the beginning, I don't know if there's anything else he might have lied about as well. The crazy thing is, I wouldn't even care about him living at home in the first place. It's the lying that got got to me so badly. I'm confused and I'm hurt. It feels like he trapped me here in a way, pretended to be an open book about everything, so I would finally get here. It feels like I've lost the version of myself that loved him. He still is a great friend, but I can't feel anything more than that. I feel distant and cold towards him. He was the only familiar thing in this new country, but now even he doesn't feel familiar anymore. Am I the bad person for slowly losing feelings and trust in him? Because that's how I'm starting to feel, and I feel so guilty because of that. But I just can't force feelings no matter how much I want to. Is this year-and-a-half long lie a big thing for me to be concerned about? Am I crazy for losing feelings? And please be understanding. I have punished myself enough for being too naive and for going to this too soon and not with enough caution. What should I do? It took me to the end of that story to realize that she moved countries for this guy, just to find out the hard way that he has been completely lying to her. And this isn't some small lie. He quite literally made people up that he lived with just to cover up the fact that he lives with his parents. Which, by the way, fun fact, that's not that unusual and it's not that big of a deal. There are lots of people who are in their 20s that live with their parents. And as long as you're doing your part in providing for yourself and paying bills and stuff like that, I really don't see any problem with that. So when it comes to this guy and the fact that he lied for so long about this situation he's in is really a big red flag in my opinion. And I think the original poster already knows this, but moving to another country for some guy just to be with them after only a year and a half is such a crazy thing to do all of a sudden. I mean, they said it themselves, but I really have to say that they really should have thought through this a little bit better. But with that in mind, you are not a bad person for this situation. Your boyfriend lied to you, and I can completely understand where you're coming from, where you feel like he kind of tricked you into this situation. So hopefully it's easy enough to get back home if that's what you decide to do. Because having your boyfriend lie to you for over a year and a half is not something I would take lightly, because that's a huge breach of my trust, and I personally would really be reconsidering all of my circumstances if I was in your shoes. Today I messed up by getting assigned in a group project with a class member who is constantly sending me memes, and now my professor has some questions, and I'm not sure what to do. So basically, I am in a business class, and our midterm group project had randomly assigned groups. This is important for context because of the garbage that happened to me because of that. So I was assigned to a fellow classmate by the name of James. That's not his real name. I've never talked to James and basically knew nothing about him. Everything was going fine with our project, and he surprisingly is pretty good at getting stuff done. But basically, we met in the library after class to finish up our project last Tuesday. He started talking about random stuff that I frankly do not care about. Stuff like politics, religion, the NFL. One of these things was about how our professor was someone who we couldn't trust, and I should have known some garbage was about to come up when he sent me a picture of Pepe the Frog, a popular meme. I was so confused, but basically, he went into this story about how our professor and this girl in the front row might be spending some quality time together or something along those lines. His reasoning was because she answers a lot of his questions in class, and according to him, she seems like the type that would do that, which is honestly ridiculous. I think and I want to believe that he was kind of joking, but I really don't think that what he was saying was okay. Anyways, after that conversation, I just brushed off this crazy dude's comments and just finished up with my work. I go to our class on Thursday, and this kid keeps sending me memes all class. I had our group DMs open on my laptop, and I'm 100% sure this professor saw one of the memes. And basically, one of these memes popped up on my computer screen in the middle of class, and I'm pretty sure I just ruined my reputation. And the meme basically described how the professor was going to fail everybody except for the girl that he was supposedly spending quality time with, which again is completely ridiculous. And worst of all, I know for a fact the professor saw it, because this professor sent me an email after class saying he wants to meet me in his office to discuss some of the messages that he saw on my laptop when he passed by me. And one of those messages was one of the memes that basically made fun of him. And at this point, I'm freaking out because I don't know what I'm going to say to my professor. I'm also worried because this is worth 35% of our grade, and it would really suck if all of that hard work we're putting into this assignment gets taken away from me by some edgy troll that I'm being forced to team up with for this project. I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna rat this moron out so I can hopefully be fine and preserve my grade. But this is why I honestly do not like group projects, and I just hope that I don't fail this one. This situation absolutely sucks, because your group project member is basically some edgelord who really needs to get off 4chan once in a while. I'll spare you the details, but the the one meme that this guy sent about this professor is pretty unkind, and it definitely has some negative stereotypes associated with it, and that's all I'll say about that. So in my opinion, I think self-preservation really should be your main goal. So I completely agree with your approach. I don't think there's anything wrong with spilling the beans to your professor and say, hey, my class member is sending me really weird messages, and this is stuff that he just so happened to send to me. And you can prove it with receipts and everything associated with when and how he sent it. I think just remember going into this meeting that you did not do anything wrong. You did not consent to have these weird messages sent your way, and I think that if you just explain yourself to your professor, you can hopefully come out of this without your grade being affected by this weirdo. So hopefully this can work out for you, because group projects in and of themselves suck enough as it is, and it would really be terrible to have one of your group members drag you down and ruin your grade. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description.
Let me tell you about the time my crazy coworkers pooped all over the facility and left behind their special toys. So if you've been watching the I Am a Jerk channel for a while now, specifically malicious compliance videos, you know that we often talk about crazy things happening in the workplace or insane coworkers that make you want to leave your job. You will also know that I've mentioned my old workplace a lot in my commentary sections. So today I wanted to share a couple of personal stories about my own crazy coworkers from my old job. One that got fired for something you might not be able to guess, and another that quit due to embarrassment. So grab some popcorn and get ready for the show. First, I gotta give you a little background to set the scene. You see, I used to work in the automotive industry. This wasn't a factory setting, but we worked with a lot of different engines, mostly testing oils and different parts across the whole facility. Well, as you might imagine, this place was dominated by male employees. We did have women that worked at the facility, but they mostly worked in the office setting or in the chem lab. I honestly had never worked in a place that separated the men and the women as hard as this place did. But according to some of the lifers that worked there, one of them being a former boss of mine, the place used to get pretty crazy. Plenty of stories of male and female employees running off to dark places for their 15-minute breaks, if you know what I mean. Also heard a lot of stories about trains, which was odd since we worked on mostly car engines. Oh, and one thing I should point out about this workplace was that gossip traveled fast. If you got fired, by the time you made it out to your car, the whole facility already knew. Anyways, if those old timers were telling the truth, it doesn't surprise me why all 3 shifts were filled by mostly men now. And if you ever wanted to escape the sausage fest, your only hope was to join the Bluecoats, aka the Chem Lab. Now these positions didn't come available often because the Bluecoats had some pretty sweet schedules with weekends and holidays off. The grunts like myself worked a 24/7 schedule. But there's only one thing you need to know about the Bluecoats. They often attracted the weirdos, and 2 of these weirdos just so happen to be the stars of today's video. Obviously, I won't be using real names, but let me introduce Sally. Now, personally, I never met Sally, but I saw her around the facility a lot. She was just another Bluecoat to me. If you didn't work in the chem lab or knew someone that did, Bluecoats treated everyone kind of like they didn't exist. Have you ever seen that episode of Friends where Ross doesn't sit with Joey at the museum? It was just like that. Well, Sally seemed to be in the age range of late 20s to mid 30s, if I had to guess, and from what I've heard, she kept pretty much to herself. Good worker, would show up on time, didn't cause any issues, which is all you can ask from a coworker. Well, another is that she liked to work out. She wasn't a gym rat or anything, but I think she just did it for health reasons and to stay in shape. We had locker rooms that were connected to bathrooms in the main part of the facility. Since we were a company that worked in a hot environment surrounded by oil, I think the locker rooms and showers made sense. Well, at least the lockers did. No one on the men's side ever used the showers. I mean, we had some coworkers that we hardly wanted to work with, let alone see them in their birthday suits. So with the men's showers not being used, it ended up being used for storage. I believe the janitor took over that space. I believe this situation was kind of the same on the women's side. No one was using the showers either. That was until Sally wrote an email asking about them. It seems that Sally wanted to start using the showers because she would work out before coming to work, and if she could shower at the facility, it would save her a bunch of time. I can't remember what shift Sally worked on, but I would have assumed that it was either second or third because there was a lot less people around to use the showers. Management okayed Sally's request to start using the women's showers, thus began Sally's new routine. She would arrive to work in her workout clothes, hit up the women's showers, and appear like Superman in her blue coat ready to be a great worker. But just like Superman, Sally was about to find out what her kryptonite was in the form of embarrassment. One thing a lot of people don't know is when you go out of your way to get something okayed by management and start doing something nobody else does at the company, people start to take notice. And people took notice of Sally. Because one day, per usual, Sally showed up to work in her workout gear and headed to the locker room and once again came out with her blue coat ready to tackle the day. Well, later that day, another female employee just so happened to be using the bathroom and noticed something odd in the woman's shower. It seemed that someone had left behind a very noticeable toy that was similar to a body part that you find on most men. And said toy is usually used in the privacy of one's home. As you might imagine, this female employee wasn't going to do anything about this toy, but nothing was stopping her from telling everyone what she had saw. Word spread so fast that an email from management had to be sent out letting people know proper etiquette when it came to using the showers at the facility. Now remember, no one used the showers before Sally, so it didn't take the world's greatest detective to find out who this particular toy belonged to. After this happened, I personally never saw Sally again. But I know that she didn't stay with the company too much longer. I don't know if she was confronted by management or if she was just too embarrassed to show up to work. But with knowing how management has handled matters in the past, I doubt this was a fireable offense. So Sally probably left of her own free will, or died from embarrassment. But finding Sally's little friend in the shower has nothing on the next story from my old job. You see, my workplace was once a place that lived in fear. People were scared to go to work and visit the one place they knew they could relax away from the pressures of management and the boringness of the job. The bathroom. This fear all started one day when an innocent coworker, who was most likely just going to the bathroom to check Twitter or Instagram, stumbled upon something that might still traumatize them to this day. What they had witnessed was someone had taken a big old crap outside of the toilet. Now I know what you're thinking. Really? Bit dramatic, don't you think? I've seen worse in a McDonald's bathroom. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of agree. It was a bit dramatic, but that was until it happened again. This time in a different bathroom located on the other side of the facility. Once the second incident got around the campus, people were shook. Everyone started to worry if they would be the next victim to find a massive pile of poop when they just wanted to post on how much work sucked on their Twitter account. The 2 p.m. bathroom parties were shut down because people didn't want to get caught in the crossfire of a drive-by pooping. By the way, the 2 p.m. bathroom parties were an actual thing. I have no idea why, but around this time every day, you couldn't get a stall if you needed to handle some business. As you might imagine in this situation, management wanted to keep this horrible information under wraps. They didn't want to start a panic at the facility. So I think they were trying to figure out ways to handle the situation without having to make a big deal about it. That was the idea until the next victim was claimed. This time, the pooping was too heinous for even management to ignore. Because some sad coworker was able to go into the bathroom, do their business, thinking they had escaped this menace, only to realize that a big pile of poop was waiting for them right in the middle of the sink. This poor soul has probably been traumatized from ever washing their hands again. Obviously, this was the last straw for management. A mass email went out through the whole company explaining that this type of behavior would be met with immediate termination and that they were investigating the whole situation. I personally never witnessed any of these crime scenes, but having heard about the whole thing, I told my coworker, "So is this guy a serial pooper?" Which did get a good laugh from everyone in the office, and people started referring to this person as the serial pooper around the facility. Now, I wish I could sit here and say that SEAL Team 6 stormed the campus and took down this serial pooper. while he was committing his next crime, but I think it was a little more anticlimactic than that. I don't know exactly how this person, who we will call Brian, got caught. I'm pretty sure someone just ratted him out and management fired him. The random senseless pooping stopped after that, and the workplace seemed to go back to normal. But I know what you are thinking. What kind of person would do such a thing? Well, let me give you some insight to this serial pooper. Brian was one of those weird bluecoats, but it wouldn't have mattered where this guy worked. He would have just stuck out. You see, Brian looked like the Cali Bro character from Stranger Things, and he shared the same hobbies as that character did. I only knew Brian because a friend of mine got one of those open chem lab spots, and he started talking to a lot of people in there. Just to give you a little bit more description to the type of guy Brian was, he once went to a work luncheon at one of those restaurants that had a famous food challenge, and he showed up wasted and super high because he was going to attempt the challenge and thought that that would help. I actually saw video evidence of this, and Brian made it through half of the challenge before he barfed all over himself. He might have even went back to work after that, but I don't really remember that part exactly. He was definitely one of those type of dudes that did not care what anyone thought of him, and I think he just did this type of stuff because he thought it would be funny. I don't know anyone that kept up with Brian, so I don't know if like this. Let me know in that comment section. I mentioned plenty of stories of mine on the Jerk channel before, but I never go into crazy detail about them. Maybe next time I'll let you know about the time that I quit my job in glorious fashion. My entitled bosses wouldn't pay my overtime, so I studied the law and forced them to pay me back. This was in 2021. I worked at a company as an IT specialist. Actually, I was promoted to be more of a responsible tier 2 position a few months after this all happened. We supported one of Microsoft's products. I was working with this company more than 5 years with this one client. This client was a source of prestige for the company, a cherry on top. I am a very humble person, but what happened next made me less humble. Characters of the story. Andrew, the only tier 3 engineer on our project. His knowledge is enormous and many companies would fight for him to work for them. Dominic, a second tier 2 engineer promoted again a few months after I was. Greg, marketing manager, he was the person responsible for this client and agreement with this client. I was working with him the past 5 years, but somewhere between 2020 he left the company. He did eventually come back though. Solomar, Greg's boss, he was responsible for Greg and our help desk. And then there was Mr. B, the global director from the company we supported. He is the person to contact with technical queries. And of course there was me. You can call me Andy. This was a non-typical help desk that had 3 lines, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. About 5 workers on Tier 1, 2 on Tier 2, and 1 on Tier 3. All help desk workers, including me, working on this specific project were saying that the project is actually great. Management, on the other hand, was terrible. We were understaffed all the time. Plenty of poor decisions, which I'll spare you from. The point is, we as technicians working directly with the client knew that this support is not working well, and that things are getting worse and worse. Basically, the end was coming. So the story starts with strike 1, which was fighting for money. When I was promoted to tier 2, my agreement did not change. I was still receiving the same amount of money as I did as a tier 1 technician. That is a promotion, is it not? But I did receive some more responsibilities. As an example, part of my new job was helping all tier 1s by being available after work. They could call me anytime if there was an issue that they were not able to handle themselves. Let's call that on-call. The on-call lasted one whole week and it was 24/7, and it happened twice per month. I did receive an additional $1,000 for each week spent on on-call. Since it happened 2 times in a month, that was an additional $2,000 per month. But of course, Greg considered that as a good argument to not increase my pay due to my promotion. To him, I was earning X before, now I'm earning X plus $2,000. If that's a promotion, then I'm a polar bear supermodel. So I continue this, and he told me that this is too big and our agreement with the client does not cover this, so it should be paid additionally. So I call Greg to sort this out. The job is big, and due to its nature, I would need to work mostly on weekends. So will I get compensated for that? That is where he made the promise that I will be paid for my overtime. So I took the job and started working on it. Negotiations with the client about technical things and preparing to implement the new configuration took time, especially due to December holidays and the New Year. But eventually the client and he came to an understanding on how to do the configuration. After the new year of 2022, I started doing the actual work of implementing the new configuration. Without getting into technical details, the implementation did not go smoothly. The tools that I had to use were not working properly, which caused a lot of issues, and more overtime. I worked every weekend, sometimes less, sometimes more. As far as I remember, I had about 80 hours of overtime from January to February. Then that's when it hit me. I need to get some insurance that I will get paid. Despite that it was promised to me by Greg that I will be paid for my overtime, I personally started doubting that. Everyone working at my company knew that the company hates paying overtime. Scratch that. Does not pay overtime. And knowing how my so-called promotion was handled, I started to worry. Then I realized my overtime is not actually registered. I did not ask. I trusted Greg and no one told me how to do this. I'm new as a tier 2 and it was my first time I was doing the job like this. So I called Greg and asked him how I should register my overtime. He did instruct me on how to register my overtime. When he saw how much time it took me, he then tried to back down from his promise and I won't get paid. This is what I was afraid of. What this means now is, 1, I am not getting the raise due to my promotion. 2, I'm not getting paid for my overtime. But I did not give up. So I went to the newly hired Greg's boss, Salamar. Salamar was hired when I was already working on this project, and he did not know standing with Greg, who was mostly responsible for the situation we were in. Then I found out that it was actually Greg who interviewed Salamar for the job. Yes, subordinate choosing who to hire for his boss. Salamar quickly showed how spineless he was, and then we understood what happened. Greg hired himself a boss that would listen to everything he says to keep control. No way Salamar was going to help fix anything. So what about my overtime or my raise? Negotiations were ongoing. I did not change my position. I was promised paid overtime and that is what I wanted. I was stubborn. Greg and Salamar's position was that they won't pay me but they will give me days off for my work. I don't really use days off. Employers always had to force me to go on vacation, so this solution doesn't work for me. Besides, I was pissed. I was promised and I will now make the client they need to pay. It was March 2022 at this point. Negotiations regarding my overtime produced no results. So I started doing something I did not want to do, which was check what the law says. I even paid for advice from a lawyer and the result was bad. The employer was right. He could force me to take days off instead of getting paid for my overtime. That is what is written in the law, but I think Greg did not know about this. There, however, was a second paragraph to that law. Yes, the employer can force me to take days off instead of paying overtime, but it had to be in the same fiscal quarter. For example, if I worked overtime in February and this was March at this point, so a plan started to emerge. How to win? Simple. Wait. Keep talking, stall, and then April comes when they will have to pay for my overtime. All this time they were stalling to not pay me, but in fact they were doing harm only to themselves. And that is what I started to do. And then this happened. When working on a project on Sunday, I noticed that there was something wrong. Unless I fix it tomorrow, plenty of users won't be able to work. It was not as much my mistake. As I said, the tools were not working properly and that caused this issue. It was Sunday, almost night, so there was no one to call or notify, so I made a call and fixed it without notifying the client. That was the only way users the next day would be able to work. And this is how Strike 2 happened. Since I was a Tier 2 now and Andrew and Dominic had to participate in weekly calls with the client, in these meetings we share news, IT talks, and we discuss things. Normal stuff. But this time the big boss, Mr. B, was angry at me. It was because I made a call to fix something that was wrong on Sunday and did not notify anyone of what I was doing. Okay, this is the client's environment. No one wants to come home and see that someone has rearranged their furniture. So I kind of understand that, but as I explained to him, there was no way to do it and it had to be done. Not fixing it would have caused a lot more issues. And it was Sunday night, so it was too late to notify anyone. Mr. B was actually a reasonable person, but for some reason that explanation did not work, which felt kind of strange. Well, I said okay and apologized. That was all I could say to Mr. B. After the incident, it did not take long for Salamar, aka Greg's minion boss, and Greg to take that argument in the talks about my overtime. After the meeting with Mr. B, I spoke with Andrew and I won't share the results of the talk, but later Dominic called me. The call started with, "You do know that it was a setup, right?" "Oh yeah." Because I did not accept Greg's terms to take days off over my overtime. Greg used his pal Mr. B to set me up as the worst employee of the month in order to force me to accept his terms. That made me more unnegotiable for a few days after that. I sent an email that either they pay me or I'll quit. You would think that due to the end is coming, they would have some brains to pay. Well, they didn't, so I handed them my resignation. Guess what? Even after sending the email, Greg and Salamar were surprised. The second part of March already started, so I needed to stall for a few more days to win my overtime payments. So what I did was take sick leave until the end of the month. Now, it wasn't a lie. I was neglecting myself and had some issues I needed to sort out. And that was it. I had won. They had to pay my overtime now. When an employee resigns, there is a period of time where they still must work before they leave completely. That period was 3 months for me, starting from the end of March. After my resignation, I had to work for 3 more months, but as I mentioned, I do not do off days. I had so many off days that for more than a month, the company had to send me on vacation. I used that time to start working in my new job. During this period, I was still working. Salamar asked me if there was an option for me to come work and that they will pay me instead of taking days off. I replied with a smile that I had already started onboarding at my other company, so no. When I saw the money for all the overtime reaching my bank account, I actually looked into the law until he was forced by the CEO. But that's just my guess. CEO, of course, was shocked that the client left the company. There is a saying in Poland that goes, "Workers come to the company, but leave from the boss." But let me know, am I the jerk? Smart play by the OP here to go above and beyond to make sure that they got what they wanted out of the company. I did something similar when I left my old job. You see, depending on how long you have been at the company, you were given a bunch of vacation days. If you didn't use them, you lost them. Also, if for some reason you used all your vacation days before most of the year was over and you quit, the paid vacation days would be taken out of your last paycheck. So I had a bunch of vacation days that I wasn't using because COVID was going on and I couldn't really travel. No one really was. So when I made up my mind to finally quit, I used up all of my vacation days in October and November with the idea that once I returned, I was going to be handing in my 2 weeks notice, which would clear me from having to pay back any of my vacation time. So shout out to this OP here, because great minds think alike. That's it for today's video. If you want to make sure you don't miss out on any content, hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell to turn on notifications. If you want to finish listening to all those stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And if you're someone who live streams and needs copyright-free music, check out the Cream of the Crop music by searching Cream of the Stream on Spotify or whatever music platform you choose. Remember, it's free.
My entitled mother expects me to drop everything I'm doing, despite illness and a messy divorce, just to provide baked goods for her and her family. And she simply is not taking no for an answer. And at this point, I'm so exhausted and sick, I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for some context, I'm going through a very messy divorce. It's been going on now for nearly 6 weeks. In fact, I only found out I was keeping my house 2 weeks ago, and I managed to get my cats out of foster care and bring them home. Everything I have is going going into keeping this house running as smoothly as possible, as I am mentally disabled, so I have to rely on the benefit system. Whenever I can't buy physical gifts, I've always done baking hampers for my friends and family. I usually start at the beginning of December and get huge amounts of hampers made by then. Now, my friends and family know what is happening, and a majority of them said that they will wait till January to get their hampers this year, as I have been scrubbing and sorting everything out, as my ex-wife left me to do everything. Paperwork, finances, house, our cats, you name it. I haven't stopped for 2 weeks until I finally collapsed out of exhaustion and got the flu for the past 4 to 5 days. It has been rough. I've informed everyone I can what's happening, and everyone just wants me to get back on my feet and get better. That is, everyone except for my entitled mother. Like I said, it usually takes me a month to prepare the hampers, and everything in these hampers are completely homemade. The Christmas cake, the gingerbread, the cheesecakes, the brownies, and the tarts, and this is just the minimum of every hamper. I usually make 10 to 15 hampers, so you can probably imagine how much work and time it takes to get these things done. It's only in this last week that I've sorted out the kitchen, so I could even start preparing to get anything together, and then the flu has struck me down. I've been sleeping most days because I physically cannot stop falling asleep. My entitled mother is coming down Friday night and Saturday morning. I've had to say to her that I am too physically ill and I'm incredibly weak, and I just can't do the usual orders in that time frame. I said that I would do what I can, but most of it will come after Christmas now. But according to her, that is just simply not good enough. She said that she demands the bare minimum, which would be 2 full-size cheesecakes, a vanilla bean one, and a caramel one that is homemade. And she also wants 2 full-size Christmas cakes. My mother is not a baker. She doesn't realize how much work just the Christmas cakes alone truly is. Never mind the cheesecakes that she's demanding. The only reason these are essential is because they are being gifted to family members who no one likes, but we have to impress anyways, because it's on my stepdad's side of the family. I'm just so frustrated and tired, and I truly just feel sick, and I feel like she's being entitled and absolutely unreasonable. This was the reason that I stopped doing big batches of baking for her. She always expected a variety of time-consuming desserts, ready for her specifically, whenever she decided that she would pop down, and it was my ex who told her to stop last time. I get it's Christmas, but I'm going through a horrendous time right now, and I'm just trying my best. Everything right now is just super frustrating, and I honestly don't know what to do. The way your mom is acting is super ridiculous. She knows that you're sick, she knows that you're just trying to get by and get things done, and she also knows that you're going through a horrible divorce right now. So the fact that she can't see through that, and she can't put her own needs on the back burner and see that, hey, maybe she just can't get this done this year, is super toxic. Like, does she really expect you to get all this baking done all while you have the flu? Like, that's just completely irrational and so uncalled for. This is not a bakery, lady. Like, you just can't pop in whenever you want and say, okay, is the food ready? Like, what are you, crazy? It's not gonna be ready right away. So if I was in your shoes, I would tell her not to show up. Full stop. Explain to her that you are not a free bakery. These things are gifts. They're very generous gifts at that as well. Like, you really pump a lot of your time and effort into them, and it's not something she's entitled to just because she wants to have the perfect Christmas, which is obviously not going to happen for you. And if they really think about it, nobody should really be getting any kind of food from somebody who is very clearly sick. So hopefully that conversation goes well and you're able to feel better soon, because you are not some kind of short order cook who's just going to be bossed around into getting some kind of baked goods for your family, regardless of the circumstances or what may be going on in your family's lives, because that honestly is just ridiculous. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. An entitled lady and man show up at the restaurant and sit down at a table that is not theirs. And after causing a ruckus and causing problems for me specifically, the front of house hostess puts them in their place and tells them to get lost. And it was truly beautiful to see. Here's what happened. So during last Saturday's evening shift, I had these 2 stray drinkers, a man and a woman, probably in their early 40s, wander from the bar area into the restaurant part and seat themselves on a table in my section. When this happens, we usually just politely explain to people, hey, sorry guys, this part is for dining. If you're just in for drinks, the bar area is right over there. And most of the time, they are understanding. But also, sometimes if the bar is really busy and the tables aren't actually needed at the time, we just kind of let it slide. Anyways, so I tell our hostess that some drinkers sat themselves on my table, and I ask if if I should kick them out. She says, nah, it's alright, they can be there for just a bit. The bar at the moment is packed, so I just ignored them and continue to serve my actual guests. Just as I'm approaching the table opposite theirs to take an order, the woman loudly says, "Excuse me, the table's dirty," and points to a few crumbs in front of her. "Can you wipe it up?" The way she said it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it was as if she was accusing me of not keeping my tables clean. But actually, if you just randomly walk in and sit yourself on a table that isn't ready yet or even for you in the first place, then you only have yourself to blame if it's dirty, right? But regardless, I turn to her and I say, "Sure, I'll just be 1 minute." I turned back to take the order from the other table. Then I went to get a rag and some spray and I wiped it down for them. So I go over and I wipe it down, but before I can leave, the woman goes, "There's still food here," and points to, I kid you not, literal air, like there was nothing there. But I wipe it down a second time anyways, just to appease her. And as a side note, it's literally Saturday night, and all my other tables have guests on them, and these people aren't even supposed to be here, let alone be getting service from me in the first place. As I'm about to leave again, she literally shrieks, "It's still dirty," and again points to the flawlessly clean table. At this point, I'm dumbfounded, but I figure maybe, just maybe, she's confused by the pattern on the table. The tables are metal, and they kind of have the effect where it looks like it has some water stains all over it. So I kindly explain, "Oh, I think that's just sort of the molted pattern of the table." But then her husband chimes in, who had been inert up until this point, snatches the spray bottle out of my hand and furiously sprays it all over this one spot that she had been pointing out to. He then thrusts his palm out to me and asks for the rag. And at that point, I just kind of silently agreed and handed it to him as he goes in on this table, as if he is literally trying to erode it into a pile of dust. Then he shoves the spray and rag back into my hands and says, "That's how you clean a table." And obviously, the table looks completely the same, and I still completely dumbfounded, just stare at him and then walk off. It then honestly takes me a minute to stop being confused and to realize that I'm upset. I don't really feel like tolerating their existence in my vicinity anymore. So I relay what happened to the hostess, who says, "I'll sort it out," and heads right over to the table. The hostess looks at them and says, "Hey guys, really sorry, but we need this table for a booking right now." The woman says, "Do you need it literally right now?" And the hostess just responds by saying, "Yes." And then this entitled woman responds again, saying, "Do you need it like this second?" And the hostess once again says, "Yes." And the woman that was never supposed to be there in the first place then responded in a very angry tone, "Well, the bar is full. What do you expect us to do? Stand?" And the hostess, keeping the streak alive, looked at her dead in the eye and said, "Yes." So they stand in the bar for a good half an hour with their drinks, watching over their ex table, probably waiting to see if we actually do use it. We don't use it at all, which is actually hilarious, and I'm fully expecting them to seek a manager to complain about us. But perhaps they had the humility to realize that they were just being complete jerks, and as a result of being a jerk, they were being evicted from the seats they never had in the first place. That hostess is an absolute boss. Yes, the original poster handled all of that with class and ease, but that hostess came in and not only did not take no for an answer, but she refused to take prisoners. They were gonna leave and they were gonna move no matter what. And it's also comical that they really thought you just were not cleaning the table good enough. People like that drive me nuts, because obviously anybody can clean a table. Like, it's not that hard, and it's not that hard to do it well. You just make sure it's scrubbed down cleanly, and I'm sure you did just that. But this weird man and this weird lady decided to try and take it up a notch and make up some scenario where the table needed to be cleaner. So hopefully these morons don't come back, because they're clearly disruptive and they have no business showing up at this restaurant if they can't have some basic manners. My boyfriend makes fun of me for the reality TV shows that I like to watch, and it's gotten so bad that he started to really make fun of me in front of my other friends. And I'm really embarrassed by this, and I don't know if I'm just being reality TV shows and the royal family and about the people who care about them. He just thinks it's all pointless. I work full-time and I have a great job, and I am a full-time graduate student about to finish my degree. I rarely have much time to watch TV, but last week I finally sat down to watch some Netflix detailing the life of Harry and Meghan. I didn't know much about them or the royal family before this. I just felt like watching it. My boyfriend saw that I was watching it on Netflix and just kind of said, "Wow," but left it at that. On Saturday night, we were out drinking with a bunch of his friends, and something about the Netflix special came on TV at the bar we were at. Out of nowhere, he said, "Look, those are the people you care about. You care about them, right?" Everyone looked at me since he interrupted a group conversation to do that, and I just laughed it off. But thinking back, it really felt rude, and maybe I could let it go. But now I'm remembering a few months ago, my sister asked me to watch a reality show with her. I only watched one season, but did get into it, and when I was watching it on my, he knows I'm smart, but was just surprised that I was watching it. And as a side note, not that it matters, but I also wanted to be clear that we have watched plenty of shows together that he considers good, so it's not like I'm refusing to watch things that he likes. I even introduced him to Breaking Bad, which is his favorite show now. I guess my question is, am I being too sensitive by feeling bothered by these comments? I need to know, because I'm considering bringing it up to him again, but I'm not sure if I'm just being too sensitive. What should I do? So it definitely seems like this is not just lighthearted teasing. If it was, he would probably be doing this in private with you at home. He would probably make small jabs or just kind of say stuff like, oh man, this is so stupid, or something along those lines. I think you get what I'm talking about. It's the fact that he has publicly humiliated you in front of all of your friends, mocking you openly that you enjoy these shows, even just for the entertainment aspect, is in my opinion a line that really should not be crossed. He is using his personal taste to bully you in front of your friends. That's honestly really inappropriate, and that is a serious line that he's crossed. And in my opinion, you really should bring this up and tell him, you know what, the way you're talking to me is really inappropriate, because this went from some personal distaste he has towards this specific type of entertainment towards some weird crusade where he's going to put down anybody who watches those shows. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly obnoxious and completely inappropriate inside of a relationship where both of you are supposed to be considerate of the things that he says. He's making it seem like if you watch those shows, this is somehow a reflection of your personality as well as your intelligence. But you are literally a graduate student who's just trying to get by and enjoy some kind of entertainment in your downtime between your very busy schedule, which I'm assuming is very taxing. So seriously, your boyfriend needs to get a grip, because the way he's acting is incredibly inappropriate, and there is no good reason for him to publicly humiliate you in front of your friends. My partner gets upset anytime we have any kind of disagreement, and things get so bad that he will openly and vocally put me down in public anytime I might disagree with him. And it's overall really upsetting, and I don't feel heard or regarded in any way, shape, or form, and I don't know what to do. So me and my boyfriend have been in a relationship for around 9 months now. We are kind of long distance, as we are only able to see each other on weekends due to the nature of our jobs. I have been noticing something in the way that we communicate that's starting to bother me a lot. He always needs to have the upper hand on a conversation. If we are discussing something and we disagree, he immediately disengages from the conversation and ignores my point of view. When I try to explain my perspective and why it bothers me that he does this, he makes fun of it, or I'm told that I'm just making a bigger deal out of it than I need to, and that I need to stop being so serious, or he just makes a joke of me being bothered by it. We got into a discussion over messages during the week, and I tried to explain how I feel like my opinion isn't valued or heard, and he just completely ignored it, which also really bothered me. And we also had a recent situation where we were with some friends hanging out, and a topic came up. He made a comment, I disagreed with him, and I tried to explain why, and he looked at me with a very upset face and repeated his opinion again in a way to make me shut up, which just really felt humiliating, like I'm being scolded for speaking my mind. I just excused myself to the bathroom and left the room for some time. I'm just at a loss of what to do. He does not seem to understand why this bothers me or how to even respect my point of view. I don't want him to agree with me. I just want him to see my opinion as valid. It's normal and healthy to disagree on things, all whilst respecting the other person's thoughts. Otherwise, we have a really great relationship. He is a good person, we have common interests, and we are able to have normal conversations, except when we don't agree on something, which makes me question the future, because today we disagree on trivial things, but what about if we decide to have a life together? What should I do? I'm not gonna lie, your boyfriend sounds incredibly toxic, and he sounds super unpleasant to be around. Sure, he probably has some very redeeming qualities, but the fact that he acts like an arrogant toddler anytime you have some kind of opposing opinion is, in my opinion, incredibly gross, and it's a big red flag in my opinion. I mean, just look at how he treated you in public. He repeated his opinion again as if to try and put you in your place. Anytime a partner does that or embarrasses you in public on purpose, or scolds you or puts you down in some way, that, in my opinion, is a very telling sign that this is not normal and it's not healthy. And you said it best. It's absolutely normal and healthy to disagree on things. In your shoes, this honestly just sounds like a nightmare waiting to happen, and I'm honestly predicting a lot of conflicts in the future. His conflict management skill is literally just to shout you down and make sure you don't have any time to discuss any issues with him. So maybe he's just super prideful or something like that, but it's honestly not your fault, and it's something he needs to figure out. So hopefully if you want to stay with this guy, you're able to find some kind of solution, because based on what you have described, this guy sounds absolutely miserable, and you honestly deserve a much better partner moving forward in your life. My best friend's girlfriend is absolutely obnoxious, and she is constantly starting these weird arguments over the smallest of things, both with me and random strangers that may be around her, and it's gotten to a point where I just can't even stand being around her, and it's starting to affect my friendship with my best friend, and at this point, I simply don't know what to do. So I've known my best friend for about 4 years. We met up at my old workplace, and since then, we have this ritual where we meet up at the same bar at least twice a month, just to have a few beers and talk about our lives. She's been with her girlfriend longer than I've known her, and ever since I met her for the first time, I knew she and I would not get along as well. She has a very intense personality, and is the kind of person that needs to be in the right about every topic. She loves arguing. My best friend complains about this a lot, and she argues with both people she knows and complete strangers. It's not a rare thing for her to pick up fights wherever she goes. She's also a huge flirt, and for a while, she was making some very inappropriate comments about their open relationship. Thankfully, she stopped doing that after a few months. There are plenty more reasons why I don't like her, mostly connected to their relationship, as I've seen my best friend cry many times and get anxious and depressed because of her. However, it's not my place to say anything. I tried giving her advice during our first year of friendship, and she quickly shut that down. She doesn't want relationship advice from anyone. I've tolerated the girlfriend this long because I haven't had to see her much. The hangouts are usually just the two of us, and the girlfriend has only tagged along a handful of times. However, things have changed recently. Apparently, the girlfriend recently had a falling out with her group of friends and is now friendsless, as my friend put it. Due to this, my friend has decided to bring her girlfriend to most of our recent meetups. And the thing is, I love hanging out with my best friend because I can relax. I can complain about work, I can talk about anything, and I know that I won't be judged. But I don't feel as comfortable with her girlfriend being present. Like I said, she loves arguing, and she always wants to get into discussions that I have no interest in. She always critiques my lifestyle and complains that I'm vegan, even though I never mention it and I keep it to myself. It also makes me uncomfortable that every time we hang out, she picks fights with random people. I have dodged the last 2 meetups because of this, and once again, we plan to see each other today instead. Fortunately, my boyfriend is included, but he's in the same boat as me. I talked to him about this, and he says he understands, as he doesn't like her either, but that I just have to accept that that girlfriend is a part of the whole package, and that I have to hang out with her from time to time if I want to maintain and nurture this friendship. I'm usually all for communication to solve problems, but telling your best friend you don't like their long-term partner would definitely break the friendship apart, so I honestly don't know what to do. This really sucks. You have a best friend that you really enjoy being around, but their partner is absolutely obnoxious, and I really hate it. Is such a toxic personality trait that this lady really needs to root out, otherwise another group of friends is going to turn on her, and I'm honestly not surprised that she had some kind of falling out with her other group of friends. I bet you it's because of the way she acts. So unfortunately, you kind of have to be the adult in this situation and talk to your best friend. Tell her straight up, hey, I don't like your girlfriend being around. She's really aggressive and she really does ruin the mood, and it's not fair for me when I'm just trying to hang out and be friends with you. Unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable around her because she always starts arguments, and she's constantly trying to go in on every little thing that I say, and just leave it at that. Her reaction really will determine whether or not you can continue to be friends, because legitimately, there is no way you can keep dodging and still maintain this friendship, and I think you owe it to yourself to at least be honest and clear the air of what exactly is going wrong with this friendship. Like, you really can't avoid this forever. At least that's what I would do if I was in your situation. But either way, hopefully this all works out for you, because the way this lady's girlfriend is acting is super obnoxious, and I can completely understand that you wouldn't want anything to do with her. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out in the description below and subscribe. My crazy entitled mother secretly records my therapy session and is now threatening to use it against me in the court of law, things about her in therapy that she did not like, and now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mother never told me that there was now a camera or an audio recording device in the living room. I tried to find it, but it's not visible from what I found. I also had a therapist as an adult, to where my therapy sessions were private and on the phone due to COVID lockdown at the time. This particular session, I was touching on the topic of the way my mother treats me and makes me feel. Without me knowing, as she was at work and I was alone with my kid at home, she recorded the entire session. And this was all without my consent. She came home and then threatened to press charges on me for slandering her name. I told her she had no right to record my private sessions. She then tried to blame me and said, maybe next time you won't do it in front of a camera. And I asked her, what camera is she talking about? And she didn't point to anything. She just said, I put a new camera in the living room. I replied to her and said, my therapy sessions are private, and if you take me to court for what I said, you wouldn't be favored, as you aren't supposed to record somebody and use their private therapy sessions against them. I have a right to my own thoughts and opinions. And if you knew anything about therapy or how I have it set up with my therapist, she wouldn't say anything to anyone unless it threatened mine or my daughter's well-being. She then goes off on this tangent, stating that she's never done anything wrong to me. And when she said that, I wanted to snap. I wanted to yell at her about the years of mental, emotional, and physical abuse, as well as the neglect I've endured because of her. I had to grow up at 5 to care for my little brother because she simply wouldn't do it. I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong, but my therapist says that what I feel is going on is how I see it, and it is valid. She should not have recorded my therapy session. It's illegal in the state of Texas to record a conversation that you are not involved in. And she basically broke a law and threatened to use what I said against me. I don't know if my reaction was right, but she refuses to delete the recordings to this day. I'm worried that she may try to take me to court, and while there was nothing incriminating, she says that she might be able to use it as a slander case against me, even though what I said is all 100% true. My therapist could even contest to it, as she has some recordings of what I deal with on a daily basis. Am I in the wrong for telling my therapist how my mother treats me? Because my mother even said, you don't talk about me to anyone, not even your friends. She has even been witnessed on call actively treating me like garbage, and then blames me by saying, you need to stop telling people I'm a bad person. And this is especially prevalent when other people witness it over call as it happens. This is all honestly so distressing, and I simply don't know what to do. The way your mom is acting is absolutely out of line. Therapy is supposed to be a private experience where you can be open and honest about your inner feelings. It's one of the few places where you can be completely honest and there really won't be any kind of judgment. Like, you really can just say whatever you want to say. So with that in mind, what you say in therapy, even when it's as brutally honest as possible, it absolutely needs to be confidential. Otherwise, situations like this could arise. It's honestly horrifying that your mom would seriously record your therapy session and then threaten to try and use it against you. I mean, what kind of psychopath seriously acts like that? And you said it best. Where you come from, it's illegal to privately record someone against their consent, especially when you are not involved in the conversation at hand. You're just some weird bystander trying to get the dirt on what your daughter's saying about you, and that's just crazy to me. So honestly, it might be time for you to lawyer up. I think talking to an attorney and discussing this with someone who knows the ins and outs of the law would really be your best bet. You can make assumptions of what you can and can't do, as well as every hypothetical that you could possibly think of. But at the end of the day, an actual lawyer probably would be your best bet. So hopefully all of this goes well, because I would be so traumatized if that happened to me. I can't imagine what it feels like to be discussing openly the things that your mother did, only for her to be like, oh yeah, I recorded everything you said and I'm gonna try and use it against you. I mean, if that's not proof that she's clearly guilty of all the things that you said, I don't know what else is. She very clearly wants to try and control the narrative, and just know, I really think that if she does try to go public with the things that you said, this will only make her look like a terrible mother and
my storage is kind of getting out of hand, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. So I'm going to need are the things I'm gonna need. Okay, I'll need 2 of these. Two of these. Okay, I'll need I can't seem to find it. Where is it? Oh, here it is. 2 of these. I'll just grab a stack of those. And I think that's everything I'm going to need except for a couple of these because they're kind of necessary. So, what I'm going to set up here is just this small little system called an ME system, and I'm going to put this there with that next to it that lights up. Put that here for that is not the way I want it. Forgot. Can't have that one there. I'm going to need 2 of these. So I'll put that there. This like that. The only reason I need such a big one of these is because, hold on, kinda want to push this back, but ME drives, this whole thing just requires a lot of power, and the glass cables just aren't enough to power that, so then I insert these here. I might need more in the future, but I disable that, and now I have this small little very compact thing called an ME system. And I'm also going to move this to be here because it just means I can add like more of these for the future. But that shouldn't be for a while that I need those. And I want just a small little chest behind it. So this chest here will have an extra ME controller, ME drive, this, all that to make a secondary system that I can just take with me around these chunks, because as this sign suggests over here, yeah, I'm gonna be digging out a lot, and I mean a lot more. If I I can find it. There's supposed to be something here. Oh. Okay. Oh, wait. Alright, here's it. Yeah. This will be the final chunk. And it will give me this, but I'm not allowed to take that until this final chunk. And just to show you guys how this works, you literally just take anything and you just put it in there. Like I just take all this sand and throw it all in there. Now it all just stacks there. And this is going to save so much space in the Minecraft world. In chests. Because it's just so compact. You can make it so compact. I could literally just put a cable box inside of it, completely put any drives all around it, and it would be perfectly fine. It'd still work, and it would still technically be compact. I also want one more thing. What should I use? What should I use? I want something that would make sense, but still look good. Need I'll just grab some of these, and then I can just put them there. Does look a little bit weird. What should I put on top? Four of these, one there, there, and oops. I forgot I have this mod called Carry On. I can pick up anything. Now I can disable this forever and just start putting my stuff in here. Where's all my dirt? And I'm gonna stop talking again.
below in the description. My girlfriend has invited me out with her friends for New Year's Eve, but I really want to try and have something more private and intimate with my girlfriend since this is going to be our first one together as a couple, and I honestly don't know what to do. So me and my girlfriend have been together for a year now. A few months ago, I mentioned that for New Year's Eve, we should do something together as it will be our first. This was a while back, so she may have forgotten, and it was in a passing conversation. Last month, while we were having a meal, she mentioned that her friend was planning a group New Year's Eve party and then going to an event, and that she's going and I should come along too. When she said this, I won't lie, I was taken aback. The way she said it made me feel like she's already decided and I should just come along with her. I was expecting us to do something together, and I was a little surprised, to be honest. I think I said something like, I'll see if I can go, and it was discussed no more. A few days ago, my girlfriend brought it up again in person for us to spend it with her friends, and I may have implied I was up for it. Some other things were going on at the time, so I didn't really give it much thought. She went out with the exact same group of friends on this day that I will be seeing on New Year's Eve. My girlfriend had messaged me saying that her friend had bought her a ticket and sent me the link to get one for myself. I'm not too sure that I'd fully enjoy the event, but it will be a brand new experience. This is because the event will be playing cultural music, and while I am from that culture too, I never listen to any of it, so I don't really know any of the words or the language or anything like that. All of her friends do know the words, and I'm worried I won't be able to fit in. In past relationships, I've always looked forward to being invited out by my partner to meet her friends. I am an easygoing person to get along with, and I really do enjoy it. However, I've never had a girlfriend who has acted this way before. It was enough of a deviation that I noticed it on the first instance that we've been in a group setting. My girlfriend has restrictive parents, so she is used to lying to go out or just to do anything. My girlfriend also becomes a different person when she's in a group setting with her friends. It's almost like she's putting on a performance. I'm a relatively confident person, but it's almost like she forgets I'm there in situations like these. I've noticed this on more than one occasion. It's important to mention that when she went out with this group of friends last week, I believe that she lied to me, as she was meant to be going out with girlfriends. She invited me out, but I said no because it seemed like a girls' night out, but she instead met up with some more friends, including some guys at a hotel room. She said they were walking to the bar and her friend needed to go to the bathroom, and they just by chance bumped into these friends, who she's very close with. My girlfriend just texted me that night that her friend needed to go to the bathroom at the hotel, and that's it. She omitted the part that they all went up to the room to pre-drink at the party. I don't believe her story of just simply bumping into them at all. I clarified her movements, and they just don't tally up with what she is saying. I honestly believe that they planned to meet up, and my girlfriend lied to my face about it. On the night, I had such a strong gut feeling that I was being lied to that I simply could not sleep. In the day after, she did tell me that she went to the hotel room by coincidence, but did not tell me on the night. She also followed the 4 guys there on Instagram, which is fine, but she didn't even mention it. My girlfriend had spoken about some of her friends throughout our relationship, and I've met them once or twice, most of them female, but I've not gone out of my way to follow them back. It's also important to mention that me and my girlfriend have never had a proper night out, as in staying out till like 2 in the morning, and that is since the year that we've been together. She's always had to be home by 11 o'clock at night due to having a curfew, and she drives instead of using an Uber. Our first 6 months together were bliss. I genuinely thought I met the woman of my dreams. I thought I'd found my teammate. However, in the last few months, my girlfriend's behavior has made me think differently altogether. My girlfriend is a self-proclaimed people pleaser, and at this point, I'd never met any of her friends, so I thought nothing of it, but after seeing her with friends, it makes sense. Since these last few months, I get the feeling that my girlfriend is not my teammate anymore, even though she tells me she loves me. Small things have happened where she's not followed through with her word. Sometimes I get the sense that my girlfriend has developed the attitude that she's going to do whatever she wants, and I simply have to deal with it. I used to trust this girl fully not too long ago. I used to fully believe in her as well, but now I do doubt what she's telling me. I haven't confronted her about the suspected lying about this hotel party yet, because I have some exams after the new year, and I can't afford to stress or have some kind of conflict about this. I plan to truly bring it up to her after that. Even though I've informally sort of agreed to go to this New Year's Eve party and join her friends, can I still tell my girlfriend that it would be nice to spend New Year's Eve together as a couple, and especially because it's our first? first. I'm worried if I text her this, I'll get a standoffish response, similar to her just saying, well, I already made plans, you do you, or that she's already bought a ticket, which is a relatively small sum of money and it's not really that much. I still haven't confronted her of the suspected lying, and I won't lie, it's honestly slowly eating me away. What should I do? I think the New Year's Eve party is probably going to happen whether you go or not. It seems like she's already got her heart set on that, so I really don't know if there's much you can do in that regard. And you're right, I think it really is unfortunate that she basically decided this all for you. I think if anything, maybe next time you want to have some kind of one-on-one time with her, make the plans ahead of time and say, hey, I've got these plans for us to spend New Year's Eve together as a couple at dinner or at a resort or something like that. Leaving it up to chance will only open this up for something like this to happen in the future. When it comes to her possibly lying, you better make sure you have your ducks in a row when it comes to that, because accusing your girlfriend of lying is only going to end badly in my opinion, especially if you don't have some kind of evidence associated with it. And unfortunately, a gut feeling is not evidence. So maybe in the future when plans are being made, speak up sooner about what you want and maybe give some kind of counteroffer before it's too late, because I think in this situation, it most definitely is too late to have any kind of party or get together for just the two of you on New Year's Eve. My new partner is really boring to me, and I'm unsure if I really just don't like him or if this is some kind of problem with me overthinking. And at this point, I don't know what to do. So I've been dating this guy for about 3 months, and we met on a dating app. We started back and forth for the first month, and then we started meeting in person, as well as going on dates, and eventually starting to hook up exclusively. Sometimes it feels right, but most of the time these days, I just would rather avoid him, and I've even considered breaking things off altogether. My 3 main issues are that it feels like we have nothing to talk about. He's one of those people who calls all the time, but half the time, neither of us are saying anything, because the other half of it feels like banter about nonsensical things. It feels like his go-to jokes are super repetitive, and I find myself losing patience with it, as opposed to finding it funny like I did 6 weeks ago. Physically, I was initially attracted to him, but he just turns me off. It's partially what I feel like is a lack of effort on his part. I always make sure to look, smell, and feel wonderful, and he shows up in the same hoodie and jeans no matter what. He had the audacity to comment on what I was wearing once, like he ever switches it up ever. He usually comes over after work, so I tried to not hold that against him, but he also wants intimacy every time, so I honestly feel like effort wouldn't hurt in this situation. I also get generally grossed out when he burps or spits or farts, and it's killing the attraction for me. The last one is really minor, and it could just be him joking around, but he'll joke about how I'm digging into his wallet because I want to eat out every time he comes over, and completely ignoring the fact that I pay for half of our dates and have taken us to more expensive places, so I have arguably spent more money, and he is already the one coming to my place, so I'm cleaning and getting ready at the same time. For some context, I can't go to his place because his mom isn't the nicest person apparently. Overall, it just feels like a lot of effort on my part, but he is a good person and we have fun when I'm not overthinking it. So it really begs the question, should I stay with him or am I just trying to avoid some kind of relationship and I'm really just trying to pick apart minor things that could easily be fixed? What should I do? I gotta say, reading that first half of it, I really would be under the assumption that you don't like this guy. Like you really dug into him really hard, basically saying that he doesn't try, that he's super repetitive, and you're just kind of losing attraction to him. But at the same time, you end this by saying that he's a good person and that you do have fun around him when you're not overthinking it. So maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe you're just overthinking the situation. And it sounds like you're not communicating with him at all. Like it sounds like you have all these issues that you rent and go along with it no problem. Or even if you explain to him, hey, I don't like it when you obviously burp and fart like that. It's kind of unattractive and I don't like it. Or something like that along those lines to maybe communicate to him and share your needs and your expectations in this relationship. Like that really could go a long way, because when it comes down to it and you're not overthinking things, you do have a good time. And that's something you can at least hold on to, especially when it's this early into a relationship. You are getting to know each other still. So if anything, I say keep giving it a try. See if these minor adjustments can be made, and who knows, this relationship could very well still work out. My entitled coworker is constantly harassing me at work, always trying to find ways to put me down and make me feel like an idiot. And I've honestly had enough and I don't know what to do. So to start off, I have some disabilities as the result of a car accident. Nothing you can really see except for a small scar on my face. And that's going to be very important for this story. So my front of house by the name of Ariel real, had personal issues going on, and cussed me out over a misunderstanding. I had been there 5 days. I spoke with my friend and owner, and he assured me that this would not happen again, and she just had a really bad day. I said, okay, and I can understand that. I came back, and every shift with her has been a literal nightmare. She has berated me nonstop on nearly every shift. Well, the straw that broke the camel's back is when I came in for a shift 1 hour after finding out that the man who raised me had passed away that morning. I came into work and let everyone know I wasn't at my best, but I would set it aside because I didn't want to call out, knowing they may not be able to find someone that quick to work a shift. From the moment I walked in, she treated me like the biggest piece of garbage. I mean, pure hatred is what I felt from her. I did everything, from walk the wrong direction down the hall, to being slow to her liking, to asking her if I could help her, which honestly just made her crazy. I asked her at one point towards closing if there was anything I can do for her, and she literally looks at me dead in the eye, smiles, and explicitly says, "Don't you think you've been here long enough to know what you're doing? Read the list." And when she said that, I almost lost my mind right then and there. I wasn't asking what needed to be done for clothes. Everyone else helps each other out on shift, and everyone else, including her, also knows that I have dyslexic aphasia, and that if they just tell me, we can get things done faster. Never mind that I have no clue what she has or hasn't done in the back. Well, at one point, she decides I don't need the food on a plate for my order, that I'm trying to get off the pass, so she takes it and tells everyone she can just wait. She says it like I'm not standing inches away, waiting on her to move so I can get it. The looks that followed were priceless. I somehow keep it together. At another point, I walk out from the back and look around to see what needs to be done, and she says, "There's plenty to do around here. Don't just stand there." And I had just walked from the back. I finally speak to the owner again about this. I explain that I came in when I was grieving a devastating loss, and to be treated just like that was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't deserve it. And sure, I've messed things up since I've been there, even before having a lot on my mind. But this wasn't like that. And even if it was, I've been there a month. I'm not a career waitress yet. I just started. She blamed me for the kitchen losing my ticket and said I should have just known that. The people had been maybe waiting 15 minutes. It's a little long for what they ordered, but we were also slammed. I just can't with this psychotic woman. I've never seen anyone with so little empathy. I wasn't asking to have my hand held or anything like that, but she looked for things to go crazy about. I told them that, and I didn't get scheduled with her this week for the first time, and I honestly hope it keeps up. I love everyone else, and without the stress of her, I actually make less mistakes. I don't feel so on edge. It's been a great work week so far. I've heard her speak to one other person this way before, but the way she talked to me felt overly personal, and I honestly don't know what to do if I ever do get scheduled with her again. That's really a toxic work environment if there ever has been one. She's singling you out because she wants to bully you and put you down, and it's really important that the owner of the restaurant steps up and makes sure that either this lady does not have you on the same shift as her or lets her go in some way, because you can bet that toxic attitude is going to go from you onto another coworker, and it's just going to perpetuate and it's never going to stop. And that's literally unfair for you, and it's unfair for the rest of your coworkers who have to put up with this garbage every day. And I think you're right. You've only been there like a month. How can anyone possibly expect you to have it all together? This is your first waitress job and you've never done this before. So hopefully this works out, and I really hope you don't have to deal with that lady again, because the way she's treating you is completely unfair, and you definitely don't deserve to get treated like that. My girlfriend is a complete hypocrite, criticizing me about everything that I do and then turning around and doing it herself. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. So my girlfriend is amazing. Our chemistry is amazing. We want things to work out, but I feel like I'm going crazy. We've been dating for 10 months and spend every day together. She's brought it to my attention that my body language is awful. The things she tells me are kind of outrageous. If I shake my leg, she accuses me of having dirty thoughts. And if there is someone in the room or on the TV, she will come to the worst conclusion possible, if you know what I mean. If I run my hands through my hair, she accuses me of trying to spread my pheromones. If I lunge to grab something in the supermarket, I'm accused of showing off my butt to the people around me. Yet it bring up that she does the same thing, if not much worse. She flies off like a loose cannon, full of denial and accusations. Alas, I adjusted my body language to make her more comfortable, and she stays the same. She has accused me of watching girls dancing on TikTok, and I've proven her wrong with my watch history. I've had my feet held to the fire multiple times on this subject alone. So to help mitigate the problem, I just deleted the app. But then I found out months later that she has been watching dirty pictures online, if you know what I mean, which is really ironic considering all the accusations she made towards me. She has accused me of putting myself on display if I, quote, manspread even a little. Yet she will wear the shortest dresses and her underwear is always showing when she sits down. But she'll say, I just want to look pretty. I can't control it. She has also accused me of being too close to people and flirting if I sit beside her friend at the dinner table without saying a word. Yet she will be basically breathing down my best friend's neck and basically make it seem like she's coming on to them all throughout the conversation. I've terminated my bubbly personality and distanced myself from people all around me, but she claims that I'm still just being too friendly, while she just wants to get to know my friends. I'm really worried I'm doing these things just to give her control and help her hide from her insecurities, as opposed to me just having some kind of bad body language, whatever that means. I would never have a problem with the things she's doing if I hadn't built resentment from the fights and the changes I've made despite everything. Is it that this change is good and she should take her own advice? Or is it that I'm snuffing out my personality to save her from herself? What should I do? Your girlfriend is a narcissist. She is absolutely being a manipulative lunatic. I mean, how on earth are you even still with her? Literally everything, and I'm not even kidding, everything she said is absolutely insane. No, you shaking your leg does not mean you have dirty thoughts. And I promise you, you're not spreading your pheromones to people around you anytime you put your hands through your hair. And nobody wants to look at your butt in the supermarket, I promise you that. Your girlfriend literally sounds crazy, and she's doing this just to control you. And if you continue to follow along with this, your personality will become non-existent. Any kind of outgoing nature or anything that you like about yourself will literally be stuffed in a box, because she's gonna claim you're doing anything and everything all the time. And it's also quite telling that she's telling you not to do these things, and then in some kind of way, shape, or form, she turns around and does it herself. She's a complete hypocrite, and it blows my mind that you're putting up with that. And I think your worry is correct. By going along with this, you're giving her control, and you're helping hide her own insecurities. I'm sure your body language is just as neutral and normal as anybody else out in public. And based on the fact that this has been going on for 10 months, I really just don't see this ever getting any better. So if I was in your shoes, I would seriously be re-looking at this relationship, because I'm sorry, but she sounds absolutely crazy, and you do not need this kind of energy in your life. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out in the description below and subscribe. My entitled wife stands me up at the altar for our wedding, abandoning me in front of all of our family and friends and humiliating me in the process, only to then later show up that night apologizing and saying that she still wants to try to get married. And I am so hurt and broken over this, I simply don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I had been dating since she was 19 years old and I was 21. We've been through everything together and basically have grown up together. I've always known that when she really gets panicky, she tends to run away from things. In fact, she used to randomly break up with me and try to run away when we were very young, but we talked it through and got better at it. And she hasn't done anything like that for years now. Anyways, I proposed a year ago, and it was hardly a surprise. We had been discussing marriage for years. We both knew we were on board to do this, especially after she finished her master's degree and got a job in my city. I mean, everything was perfect. The past year has been very hectic in planning a wedding, since we're both from another country where grand weddings are the norm, and we had to fly people out and all this other logistics. About 2 to 3 months ago, the nerves really started to hit my girlfriend, and she tried to talk to me about it. I will acknowledge my faults here. She did try to bring it up to me that she was nervous, and the whole ordeal of a grand wedding was stressing her out. Ideally, she would have wanted a small destination wedding with a big party afterwards, but due to both of our families requesting a big wedding and inviting all their friends, we eventually just kind of gave in. She was also nervous about the commitment of marriage, as well as the finances and everything that comes along with it. All of this we had discussed before, but I guess she just needed some reassurance. However, in hindsight, I realize now that every time she brought it up to me before that she was anxious, I chalked it up to the normal cold feet people go through and would just be like, oh, it's gonna be fine, and I just kind of brushed it off. I was also stressed out with a lot of work work to do before I could take my long leave, as well as planning and budgeting and all this other stuff. We both make very good money, but this wedding was going out of budget, and we didn't want to take any money from our parents. And honestly, all of it got pretty stressful for the both of us. She seemed a little jittery the night before as well, so I told her to just calm down and try to get some sleep. Mostly, I was just very, very excited to make her my wife, something I have been dreaming of since the day we started dating. She is the love of my life, and it was still hard to believe that she was choosing to marry me. I was the happiest man alive, but it all came crashing down as on the day of the wedding, she completely ghosted me and instead ran away from the wedding. And I was honestly blown away by what happened next. She left me a note apologizing and saying she couldn't do all this, and she just ran on the day of the wedding, mind you. I don't even know where she went. All of it unfolded so quickly, and it was almost like a movie. All our family members coming into my room while I was ready to walk out onto the altar, asking me where she is and all this other stuff. It was honestly pretty traumatic, and I ended up crying in front of all my family and friends. Our parents handled the guests, and all of it while I just went home heartbroken. And when I got there, she wasn't at home. I spent the entire day calling or texting her, and her phone was just switched off. She walked in at night at about 10 or 11 o'clock p.m. and just kept crying and apologizing. I told her to just go to sleep, and I need time to think about everything that happened. I am now at a point where I seriously don't know what to do anymore. She has apologized multiple times and wants me back, and says that she's even ready to do the whole grand wedding again, and she regrets having run away in a momentary lapse of judgment, as she puts it. She knows that she wants to be with me, but she just panicked and got cold feet. I can't imagine my life without her, but at the same time, my trust is completely broken. I don't understand why she couldn't just be more of an adult and tell me properly before the wedding, although she insists that she tried to. I feel completely disrespected and just heartbroken and completely humiliated that I had to go through all of that. I don't know if I should even forgive her. What if she just does this again and runs at some other important event like she did on the most important day of my life? What should I do? That is absolutely tragic, and it's absolute garbage. For context, this lady is 26 years old, and she waits until the morning of the wedding to dip and not show up in the first place. The fact that she tried to say, "Oh, I tried to talk to you about it," is an absolutely insane excuse in my opinion, and is not acceptable in the slightest. Her expressing her anxiety and saying, "Oh man, I'm nervous about this," is not in any way, shape, or form the same thing as her saying, "Oh my gosh, this is too much, I don't want to do this." That would be completely different. But her claiming, "Oh, I'm nervous and I'm a little panicky," without actually implicitly saying, "Hey, I don't want to get married right now," is completely disrespectful to you and the money that you put into this, as well as the fact that her family and your family all came together from different parts of the world just to try and come together for this wedding. She threw all of that out the window when she said, "Nope, I'm not going to show up for this." And then she has the audacity to show up later that night and just cry and apologize, as if that's going to make any of this better. So in my opinion, this is absolutely a deal breaker. And if I was in your shoes, I also would never feel like I could trust her again. I mean, what was she thinking? You wasted all of this money for nothing. She made a complete fool of you, and now she's like, "Okay, now I'm ready to get married." Like, are you kidding me right now? Overall, this is a crazy scenario to be stuck in, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. It also goes without saying that this is a massive red flag, and personally, I don't think I could marry someone who treated me like that on the most important day of my life. Like, that's unacceptable, and that really would be a deal breaker. So whatever you decide to do, hopefully it's for the best, and hopefully you think about yourself in this situation, because clearly she only thought about herself on the day of your wedding and decided to stand you up and humiliate you in front of everybody. And I think that really will be valuable in making your decision moving forward. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My partner of 5 years had an emotional affair with his ex, and after confronting him about that, I'm honestly not sure if our relationship is salvageable, and I don't know what to do. I want to start off by saying that I thought we were good. I honestly thought we were perfect. I saw a future with him. We always talked about building a life together. I just bought tickets and flights for our Valentine's Day trip, as well as for his birthday to go out of the country. Early on in our relationship, I had baggage and trauma from previous relationships, where past partners would talk to other women behind my back. In my other last relationship with another partner, I caught him writing letters to his ex. My last partner and I broke up, and a few months later, later, he got engaged to the ex that he was writing letters to. Now, my current partner knew all of this, and he was so kind and patient with me, helping me work through this early on in our relationship. Eventually, I trusted him. I really thought he was one of the good guys. He was my rock and my one and only. A few days ago, I had a mini stress breakdown because I found myself realizing I was doing a big amount of the chores and the errands around the house. I was upset at him about that. We talked about the chores and divvying up the mental load, but I also used this as an opportunity to let him know that I'd like more effort and support from him. I also noticed that he has been on his phone a lot more lately, and whenever I would come close to him, I noticed he would turn his phone over or quickly flip through his apps. I also remembered him smiling or laughing and just looking at his phone. I thought it was weird when he addressed all the other issues that I brought up, but not the phone one. I asked again, and he went back for a bit to think, then came over and said it was because he was doing a lot of journaling lately, and it would be embarrassing to show to anybody. And I asked him if he was including me in that statement. We left the argument after that. His family's holiday celebrations were today, and he wanted to go. I was still upset, and I said I wasn't going anymore, and he actually just left without me. Didn't even put up a fight like he usually does. He even left, came back because he forgot his camera, and then went back to it. I had a gut feeling, a very strong feeling inside me, which prompted me to log onto his computer and look through his messages. I was shaking from all the anticipation and the adrenaline, and that's when I saw it. I screamed. I broke down crying. He has been texting his ex, and it was 100% an emotional affair. He reached out at the end of November, and they were talking for about 2 to 3 weeks. At that point, my whole world turned around. He reached out first, and it was friendly at first. He just wanted to get closure. He said he missed the way they were able to talk and joke around. Friendly talk quickly turned into her getting all flustered from receiving messages, as well as wondering if they were secretly soulmates. He used to talk about me in the chat and how happy he was with me. She would then retort with a photo of her current partner. He later said, maybe we just don't talk about our partners for now. I'm not 100% comfortable if I'm being completely honest. And then all of the images and things he would send to me over text, he also sent to her. They were planning to meet up and talk at some point. They even acknowledged in the chat that this may be an emotional affair, and they even actively joked about it. Her current partner knew she was talking to mine, but I had no idea. Looking through the timestamps, the exact same time when I was upset, he messaged her, asking her if she had talked to me. She said no, and he said that we were having an argument and he was stressed. He was more worried about being caught than how I was feeling at the moment. He also told her about the argument, and it just feels weird and not right to joke about or complain about your partner to your ex. It feels very disrespectful. I mean, where was I throughout all this? I'm not proud of what I did, but after collecting all the proof, as well as a 23-minute long video of me scrolling through the messages, I rushed to pack a bag, and before leaving, I threw all his clothes on the ground, as well as his books on the ground and his luggage all over the place. I made sure not to do any permanent damage of any kind, but I wanted him to know. I was so close to blasting him all over social media with my proof, but I ended up not doing that. I wanted everyone to know so badly how horrible they've been and how much they've hurt me, but I didn't want to stoop to their level because I know I'm better than that, and I am much better than her. Their relationship had high highs and very low lows. It was incredibly toxic. They brought out the worst in each other, and she even would get physically aggressive with him. Why would he throw away all that we have for her? I'm so glad for my friends being there for me. I remember that night bawling to her, and one of the things I've said was, well, what if he's texting or calling her right now? What's stopping him from doing this guilt-free or meeting up with her earlier? He must be back home from the Christmas party, right? Why hasn't he called me or texted me to see if I'm okay? I felt like I had already lost to her. She finally won and has him around his fingertips. The next morning, he finally messaged me. He asked me to talk, and we did eventually do that. He showed up looking pretty bad with puffed up eyes from crying, and I was surprised that I wasn't teared up as well because I must have cried it all out prior. We talked for about 6 hours. Even though I was fiercely angry, I gave him the space and the opportunity to explain his side, and I just listened. It's the usual cheater speech. He has been feeling not confident lately, felt like something was missing in our relationship, felt like he never got the closure from the previous relationship, and thus reached out. Intentions were to get closure and figure out what was missing, and to use that to better our relationship. He continued to talk to her because he wanted to make sure before they met for closure, it was on friendly terms. He then missed talking to her. She kept flirting and talking about catching feelings, and he reciprocated. He tried to blame me and say the past year of our relationship hadn't been great. But I pushed back, and I said to him, then why not talk to me or make an effort to grow this relationship? Why look elsewhere? He then tried to flip this and say I made a massive violation of trust by snooping around. And I said, so what? Isn't this justified? Also, would I have ever even known about this friendship if I hadn't snooped around? He said he wanted me to hear it directly from him, which is just great, just so I can get a watered down version of what's really going on. I then asked for his phone, and the real kicker here is while I was in a hotel, bawling my eyes out, no text or phone call came inside of me. He was texting her about what had happened and was asking her for her advice. He tried to make it seem like a good thing by saying that she said he should talk to me tomorrow. And what, you weren't going to talk to me until she said you should? He said he was planning to anyways. So he's just trying to paint her in a better light and justify talking to her. His defense for talking to her was that he assumed that we were completely done as a couple. He reiterated that I'm perfect. He loves me and thinks about me all the time, and we had 90% good things going. And meanwhile, his ex only had 10% of good things. And he truly was just trying to figure out what that 10% was to try and better our relationship. He said he takes full accountability and made a giant mistake, and that he should have went to therapy instead. I told him to block her everywhere. I don't know if he was going to do it anyways, and maybe I didn't give him enough time to suggest it, but I can't believe I had to ask him to do it. So he did it everywhere, but then hesitated once he got to the messaging app. He had the audacity to ask if he could have one last phone call with her just to get closure, but I said no. He pushed back again, and I said you can only text her, or if you do call her, you need to do it right in front of me. He hesitated and waited. I stood up and said you either do that or you leave. I will not be second place to anybody. I deserve to be first. He then sent her a message and blocked her everywhere. But him talking to her after we had fought and seeing how hurt I was, and then asking if he could have one last phone call was extremely hurtful, in addition to the emotional cheating messages. I know I've got a lot going on. I have a wonderful support system, and if I may toot my own horn, I know I'm beautiful, smart, caring, funny, and I know I won't have any trouble finding someone out there who will see all this in me and not take it for granted. But 5 years, we had so many wonderful memories and adventures. Our lives were intertwined, our friend groups melded, and his family loves me to pieces. Why did he risk throwing this all away? What was he thinking, if at all? And even though I know I will be okay, and I'm not afraid of being alone or adjusting, I just don't know why I really want this to work after all he has done to me and continue to do to me. Do I believe him that he's sorry and he wants to work on our relationship? He looked remorseful and understood what he's done. He's already set up a meeting with a relationship counselor and is coming up with a plan on how to rebuild our relationship and my trust. I'm glad he is making steps to make this right and acknowledge his mistakes. And I want to see if this really will work. But I keep flip-flopping between if I'm being horribly naive and stupid, or maybe this will work and make us stronger than before. But I really do love him. And if with the right amount of time and effort, I know deep down, I have the capacity to forgive him. I'm honestly lost. My emotions keep fluctuating between anger, hurt, mourning, and hopeful. What really sucks about this is whether I do leave or if I stay and we work on this, I'm going to be hurt either way. I know I did nothing wrong, and yet I still have to be hurt from all of this, and for a long time. You have a lot more grit than I would. If my partner had cheated on me, and yes, he absolutely cheated on you, I would probably kick them to the curb and say, you know what, I don't want you in my life. So you must really love him and be a stronger person than I would be. Because I don't think I could possibly face my partner if they did something like this to me. I mean, he was so obsessed with talking to his ex-girlfriend once again, basically getting her permission and advice on how to run your relationship. And that's just so toxic. So hopefully this all works out for you, because the way he acted is unbelievably unfair, and you truly do deserve so much better. My female colleague is starting to act weird towards me after we've spent several years being really good friends at work, and at this point I really don't know what to do. So I sit in one office with a married colleague. We are both lawyers for one government department. We clicked instantly from the first moment and became really good work friends and colleagues. We have sat together for more than 3 years so far. We used to talk to each other for multiple hours per day. We went to lunch together, we helped each other work-wise, and we exchanged birthday and Christmas presents. friends. But our friendship existed only at work, and we both were totally fine with that. But this year, everything changed. Our work department hired 2 new employees, 2 young women, and my colleagues started to spend more time with them, and I was totally fine with that. I even introduced her to one of the new girls, whom I have known from a different workplace, because I thought they might become good work friends. My colleague and these 2 other women started to hang out together during work in another office, and I started to notice. My colleague also started to change her behavior towards me. After one stupid conflict during which we did not speak to one another for several days, I noticed that she started to look at me differently. She had a big smile whenever she came to work and entered our office. She started to tease me more often, and she would start talking to me about her kids without me asking. And at times, it seemed like she was really demanding my help and attention. She was asking me to come close and to look at stuff on her computer, and she would become irritated when I did not respond to her immediately, stuff like that. However, it was not annoying to me, and it did not affect my work. To be honest, I started to feel afraid that she might be developing feelings for me, but I would never start anything with someone who is in a committed relationship. A few weeks later, she started to become really on and off with me, meaning that she would be friendly on Monday, we would talk as friends again, and she would then be distant on other days, rather talking with the 2 women I mentioned. I thought to myself that she probably replaced me emotionally with the new girls, so the dynamic of our work friendship changed as a result. It started to look like as if she was trying to push me away emotionally, so I just started to mirror her. I stopped asking her personal questions, I started to go to lunch with other colleagues, and much more. One important thing is that recently, she completely stopped asking me personal and even work-oriented questions, and became very easily annoyed with me whenever I asked her why she is sometimes kind of rude and disrespectful towards me all of the sudden. But questions like this seem to only push her further away from me, so she is actively ignoring me as a result, even though she looks to be comfortable around me. She even said several months ago that she feels the safest with me. Last week, I asked her if she would prefer to sit with someone else instead, and she told me, "Do whatever you want, I don't care." And after that question, she did not speak to me for a few days. She would not even say hi or bye. Basically, she was giving me the silent treatment. Today, she started to talk with me again, but she is still very distant. My other colleague told me that she would prefer to continue sitting with me, but it's quite hard to be around a person who is treating me as if I don't matter to her anymore, even as a colleague or a person. Now I honestly don't know what to do at this point. She is treating me as if she was actively trying to ignore me or punish me for something that was not communicated. It's not affecting me work-wise, but on a personal level, it's pretty triggering, because I liked and still do like her as a friend and a colleague, but she completely changed her attitude towards me. She acts normal around everyone else except for me. It's important to note that even I don't want to sit with someone else, but sometimes it's hard to accept that she simply does not want to discuss things with me in order to have some kind of repair on our work relationship. I'm just giving her space at the moment, and I'm focused on my work and other people there, but it still bothers me how weird things are between us, considering the fact that we share one office. Would there be any way to improve our work relationship? What would be the best thing to do in this situation? What should I do? This seems like one of those situations where you definitely should really just take the hint and move on and maybe find another place to sit at work, because this lady's being very off and on and most definitely was trying to flirt with you. And I bet you the fact that you didn't reciprocate is probably the reason she's upset. And you said it yourself, she's married, and I don't think you should waste your time with someone who's acting like this. And sure, I totally understand that you want to have friends at work, but you know what? You can find friends outside of work and just make that place the place you go to make money, and then you go home and do your own thing. Or if anything, find different people in the office to be friends with. It sounds like you've attempted to give her space, you've tried to check in and be kind to some degree, but she is the one that's pushing you away. And in my opinion, if someone shows you exactly who they are, you should believe them the first time around. So I think you should believe her when she's acting like she just doesn't care about you, because that probably is exactly how she feels. So hopefully you can find a new place to sit at work, and you can find other people to befriend at work. It's unfortunate, and it does happen, but I think you're better off finding another way to be happy at work than to try and rely on somebody who clearly does not care about you. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out in the description below and subscribe. An entitled Karen gets thrown out of the store I work in because she refused to put on a mask no matter what, stating that she was exempt from having to wear one, demanding that we bend the rules to her specifically. But after she gets kicked out of the store for being an absolute nuisance and refusing to follow the rules, she calls us back and threatens to sue us. And I am honestly blown away by the level of entitlement that this lady exhibited. Here's what happened. So this story was from back when the sickness was at its peak. I will first preface this with an explanation of the laws here, as laws change in different locations, and I want to avoid people making assumptions on what is or isn't correct for the laws where I live. When it comes to where I live, when masks are mandatory, you can get a fine for not wearing one when you're supposed to. Some people are exempt, but that exemption just means that the police can't fine you for not wearing a mask. And this exemption is also just a verbal thing. The government doesn't issue certificates or even a license or anything else stating that you have an exemption. You can just say, hey, I've got an exemption, and that's that. A police officer can't fine you. In the rare case that they still fine you, you can fight the fine. Then it becomes an issue of proving the exemption. But as long as it's valid, it's not a battle. The fine will be instantly revoked. However, it should be noted that private businesses here can refuse service to anyone for any reason, which then leads to the entitled Karen of this story. So here we go. The owner of the shop I work at happened to be in that day. He had a newborn son. roughly a month old, so he was very protective and enforced the mask restrictions to the extent that he could. And that's about when the entitled Karen walks in without a mask. He politely asked her to wear a mask, but she refused. "If you're not going to wear one, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, since you're not complying with our regulations." And that sent her over the edge. "I don't have to wear a mask. I have an exemption." She shouts this out as she pulls out a piece of paper. As mentioned, no government body here issues any kind of paperwork that says that a person doesn't need to wear a mask. You either have one or you don't. It's all verbal. For example, you don't get a certificate just to prove that you have asthma or whatever. It's ridiculous, and this Karen honestly thought that her fake printout would fool anyone. Even if the government did issue physical exemption notices, they definitely wouldn't print them on plain paper. At the very least, it would at least be laminated. The owner didn't mention the mangled paper that she pulled out from her handbag. He just reiterated that she had to leave. He mentioned his newborn baby, explained that having an exemption doesn't make you immune, and that she can still spread the virus. After a couple more back and forths, she eventually just left in a huff. And I was lucky enough to witness the whole thing, and I thought it was hilarious. But my luck ran out as the entitled Karen called back that very afternoon, and I was the unlucky human that picked up the phone. I'll break down the conversation as efficiently as I can. I answer the phone, and she says, "Hi, I was in today when I was rudely kicked out of the store for not wearing a mask, despite having an exemption. Unless you sell me what I came in for at a steep discount, I'm gonna sue you." I cut her off there and I said, "Let me stop you right there. I witnessed the whole thing and you have no grounds for a lawsuit. Firstly, your fake piece of paper doesn't mean anything. Secondly, as a private business, we have the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason, even if you did have an exemption. That only protects you from getting fined, and we are well within our rights to refuse your service." And before I could continue, she starts screaming about how she has a right to shop anywhere she wants, screaming for me to stop explaining what I'm saying and that she shouldn't have to wear a mask. After listening to this go on and on, I just slammed the phone into the receiver as hard as I can about 3 times. I wasn't going to get into a screaming match with this entitled Karen. I look up from my desk though, and I see the owner staring at me. I explained to him that it was the same lady from the store earlier, and he completely understood. Then at that moment, she rang back up again. We have caller ID and I recognized the number immediately. So I picked it up and said, "Are you ready to calm down?" She responded by saying, "You're extremely rude and I demand to speak with a manager." I responded by saying, "I am the manager." She was stunned in silence for a second. I then said, "You could speak to the owner if you want," to which she promptly said that she did. At that point, I realized that she had no clue that she spoke to the owner in the store that morning. So I passed the phone to him and he had a chat with her. I was hoping he would have some fun with her, but I suppose he was just more mature than I am. I won't get into what they spoke about because I only heard what he had to. Ended up with him saying, "I won't stop you from leaving a negative review online, but we are a small business and that stuff really can affect us. So I really hope you could reconsider." At the end of the day though, it was all empty words on this entitled Karen's part because she never did sue us, and in the end she never did leave that negative review, and hopefully she just never comes back ever again. What an absolute psychopath. Talk about being incredibly entitled and acting as if the rules don't apply to you. Like seriously, if you go into a store and they're asking you to wear a mask, then you definitely need to wear one. And this is especially important since this story happened during the peak of the pandemic. I mean, is it really that hard to put on a mask and follow the rules? Some people really are convinced that the world just revolves around them, and that's unfortunate because that level of entitlement really will get you absolutely nowhere. So hopefully this entitled Karen learned her lesson, that no, she can't just demand to get whatever she wants and expect people to bend to her will, especially if she's going to be that rude and disturbing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My boyfriend still lives at home with his parents at the age of 40, and I honestly don't know what to think of it, and I don't know if this is a breaking point for our relationship. So I am dating a guy who just turned 40 years old. We get along great and have been together for around a year and a half. It's kind of hit me that it feels a bit strange that he lives at home with his parents, as well as his younger brother. I'd understand if he was somebody who was looking after his parents or something like that, but the rest of his siblings are either married with kids, and I think they have their own home too, or they are in their early 20s, so I suppose it doesn't seem as bad for them to live at home. My boyfriend also can't cook. He can't use the washer, so I'm assuming his mother cooks, cleans, does his washing all for him. I know this because he'll say things like, I'm gonna see what's been made at home for dinner, and stuff like that. When getting to know him a year ago, He'd talk about living at home, but I thought maybe it was just him and his parents, and he takes care of them or something like that. Not that his brothers live there as well, and sometimes his nephews. And also that my boyfriend doesn't have any lifestyle skills, even though he has a secure job and makes enough money to not depend on anybody else. It is a bit of a turnoff, to be completely honest, of how he really is not that independent. He has also shown his immaturity as well, and this comes out when we have a debate and he absolutely won't change his mind or even apologize if he's done something wrong, but I'm guessing it's due to his age and the fact that he's had that mentality for so long. I really am not sure that anything would make him change it. I don't know if I'm overthinking, but I feel like he is dependent on living with his parents and that he might be too afraid to live on his own or something like that. There has been times where he wouldn't want to stay at my house because he doesn't want to walk into my house the next day or go out too late that night in case they think that he's been somewhere. I mean, he is a 40-year-old man, and it's not like they don't let him out or anything like that. It just comes down to the fact that he doesn't want to do that. Very strange. Like, let's say he comes over to my place. We'd watch movies, we'd spend some time together, maybe like 1 to 2 hours, and then he would leave because he needs to get home for literally no other reason a majority of the time. Like, he just doesn't have a solid reason why he doesn't want to stay out later. I feel like he thinks he's a man's man because he works out, makes good money, but he genuinely doesn't have any skills or goals or other things to show for it. As in, he's too stuck in his ways and acts like he's somebody that doesn't need to have goals. And he does this in such an arrogant way, talking like he is better than everybody else without really saying it. Maybe I'm overreacting here, but it honestly feels very strange that he's still living at home, and I honestly don't know what to think of this situation. I definitely see where the original poster is coming from. This guy is 40 years old and he still lives with his parents, and I think the original poster has it right. It really would be different if there was some kind of extenuating circumstance surrounding around why he was still living at home, but it seems like he's very dependent on living with them to some degree, and he really just enjoys the security of having somebody at home, or maybe something along those lines. I don't know. It definitely seems like a weird situation in general. He has a stable job, and he's got the money to live on his own and basically do whatever he wants, and yet he still lives at home and seems so dependent on his parents. So it does make sense, in my opinion, that you would be worried and concerned about this aspect of his life. Also, the way he acts and how immature he can be when it comes to like debates or arguments of some kind, in my opinion, is kind of a red flag, if you will. Like, how does he not have the emotional maturity to at least admit when he's wrong or to apologize when he makes a mistake? Like, is it really that hard to say, I'm sorry and I'm gonna do better? Especially when there's something legitimate that you did that's really wrong? Either way, it really does sound like the original poster is trying to find the best fit for some kind of future spouse. And if this guy still lives at home at the age of 40 and comes off as being incredibly emotionally immature, then I think some work really needs to be done if you ever see this as an extended relationship. My mother-in-law is angry at my kids that they ate some of her groceries, and despite correcting her and putting her in her place, she decided to still be nasty with me and slam the doors and yell at my kids. And now I honestly don't know what to do. So I have 3 kids, ages 12, 8, and 4 years old. They are good, healthy children that do well in school. They also love their paternal grandma very much. My mother-in-law came down this month to spend the holidays with the family. She lives far away, so we don't see her often. We have a big home, so I sat her up in a nice room in the house. Shortly after she arrived, she offered me her food card. I declined several times, as my family doesn't need assistance with food. I instead thought that she should just keep it. However, she insisted and said she wanted to buy treats for the kids and that it was Christmas for all, as she puts it. Fast forward to last weekend, and I came home from work. The kids all rushed me and asked if they could have a family movie night and watch Home Alone and drink some hot chocolate. I thought it was a great idea, and so I agreed. So I told them to start making their drinks while I changed clothes. In the other room, I overheard my grandma come into the room and start scolding them. She said,
I knew you would all do this. You've really started something, you know that? I'm never gonna buy hot chocolate again.
When I heard that, I was shocked. So I came out of my room and I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I will replace it in the morning. After I said that, she just rolled her eyes and went into her room. The next morning, I went to the grocery store before work and bought a bunch of snacks and replaced her hot chocolate that my kids had drinking. I then instructed my children to only eat what I bought and then went to work. Around lunchtime, I started getting text messages from my kids telling me that their grandma wouldn't let them eat the food. They told me that they let her know that I bought them food, but she replied by saying that no, I actually only bought it with her food card. She went further to to tell them that they act like they have to eat all the time, which is really inappropriate. At this point, I called her and let her know that I did not use her food card, and that if she didn't want the kids to eat what she had bought, then she should bring it into her room, and also not buy them any more food. After I said that, she just straight up hung up on me. Afterwards, I started getting messages from my kids that they were scared, and that their grandma was slamming doors and yelling that she is never coming back to our house again. The kids were crying at this point and scared of what their grandma would do. I had my husband call his mother, and I don't know what was said, but when I got home, she wouldn't even look at me, let alone speak to me in the first place. I honestly want her to go home. I'd even buy her the ticket. I don't trust her around my kids while I'm at work, and she is the one that chose to take this issue about food out on the children without even having spoken a word to me about it. I'm not sure if I would have even discovered it if I didn't accidentally hear her yelling at my kids. My husband wants me to just let it go, but I feel like something is very wrong with this situation. The way this mother-in-law was acting in this situation is incredibly inappropriate. If you're a guest at somebody's house, you need to abide by their rules and be on your best behavior. I don't care how old you are. It's so inappropriate to start yelling at other people's kids, especially when they are blatantly not touching your stuff. It'd be different if they were going through all of your things and causing a lot of chaos at your expense. Then, in that case, I really would understand you getting on their case and saying, hey, you need to cut it out and stop touching my food. But in this regard, that just wasn't what was happening. And if anything, this weird grandma was just having some kind of power trip, and thankfully the mom was there to try and put her in her place. And I'm honestly with the original poster in that situation. If you're gonna go around yelling at my kids and slamming doors, all because you're upset that I put you in your place, then I think you've gotta go. So if I was in your shoes, I would be looking at local hotels she can kick it at. That way she can enjoy as much of her food as she wants, and she won't have any excuse to try and yell at your kids. Today I messed up by hugging and kissing a girl that I only just met that night, and I later found out that that girl is actually my best friend's girlfriend, and I had no idea. And now everyone is furious with me, and I honestly don't know what to do. So to start things off, I'm from Argentina, and yesterday my country won the World Cup, and there were obviously lots of celebrations. At night, I went to a small party with some friends. One of my friends invited his new girlfriend and her friends, and I didn't know any of them. When the girls arrived, I saw my friend start a conversation with one of them, and I didn't see him with any of the others, so I assumed that was his girlfriend. The night developed and we got to play beer pong. We were having lots of fun and I got a little drunk, but nothing out of the ordinary. On my side of the table, I was playing alongside two of the girls, none of which were the one I thought was my friend's girlfriend. It felt to me like we all got confident with one another while we were playing. One of the girls stood right next to me shoulder to shoulder, and both of us were making jokes and snarky remarks to one another, and I really thought she was into me. At least that is what I felt at the moment. I guess I must have really gotten confused. Meanwhile, my friend, the one with the girlfriend, tried to get to play on our team, but the girls and I didn't let him play at first, and made some jokes just to try and annoy him. But in the end, we let him play. He got in between me and the girl, and I didn't think too much about it. The game went on until the opposing team had only one glass left. The girl I thought was into me scored the game-winning ball, and this is where the really stupid part comes in, and this is exactly where I messed up. In Celebrate, it would be easy to blame the alcohol, but I wasn't so drunk. All I can say is that I'm a complete idiot. Luckily, the girl didn't take it badly. I guess she must have thought it was weird, but didn't really say anything about it. At the time, I just didn't pay much attention to the whole thing, and I honestly just forgot about it. After that, we chatted and played some other dumb party games, but nothing else of note really happened. I got back home kind of early, and my best friend gave me a ride home. He is not the friend with a girlfriend, mind you. On the ride back, he told me I should be more careful, and that the girl I kissed was my friend's girlfriend. Apparently, he had told the guys he was mad at me for how I behaved. His anger is totally justified, of course. I immediately texted him and told him that I got word from my best friend that everyone is still mad with me. These guys were my only friends. I only chose to go to this party because I felt like I was drifting away from them, and I didn't want that to happen. Instead, I made everyone mad by kissing my friend's girlfriend. I messed up by getting all my friends angry with me, and I honestly don't know how I'm gonna recover from this one. This situation really sucks. You were clearly under the influence and you made a terrible decision. You thought the girl standing next to you was just some single lady that didn't have any boyfriend to account for, and unfortunately you made the bad decision of kissing her on the cheek after she won the game-winning ball in beer pong. pong, mind you. Like, even at its best, that's really not the time to start kissing people on the cheek, especially when you really don't know them in the first place. I think I could win the lottery and I still wouldn't start kissing people on the cheek. So I think that's just a bit of an overreaction, to be completely honest. But it's not an overreaction for the boyfriend to be upset about you. The best thing you really can do is just wait for the dust to settle. They are clearly upset about this in the moment, obviously, but I think if you just give it time, maybe things can settle down and you can have some kind of friendship once again. It's also a little strange that your best friend didn't introduce you to his girlfriend. Like, don't you think that would be important for him to do? But either way, hopefully this all works out for you, because this honestly seems like an innocent mistake, and hopefully this doesn't completely ruin your friendships, since it sounds like you guys go really far back. Today I messed up by not knowing that deleting a dating app does not delete your profile, and now I'm in trouble with a girl I just started dating who thinks I'm still shopping around while we are still getting to know each other. Here's what happened. So I lucked out, and I met a smoking hot, super cool heavy metal girl with gorgeous tattoos through a dating app. She is totally my thing, but I was always intimidated by women like that. She is kind of out of my league, especially since I have a kid from a previous marriage. However, my text message game has been strong, even if my in real life game is quite weak. And this is especially after being married for almost 13 years. I've got a pretty good face, and she thinks I'm awkward but still kind of cute. So we meet once for what the young people call a vibe check, and I think, well, that's that. She's probably gonna ghost me now. My ego is trashed after my divorce, despite it being a year ago and one rebound later, so I have no confidence left inside me. However, the flesh and spirit are still willing in the face of failure, so I still have my apps up, and I fiddle with my dating profile a bit over the next day, thinking maybe I'll do better with the next woman that I date. However, out of the blue, she says that the vibes are good, and then in utter surprise, she says that she wants to hang out with me a lot more. I'm basically like, absolutely. And so as a result, I deleted these applications before our second meeting, thinking that it might be handy to not have these dating apps on my phone. It might be premature, sure, but I was enthusiastic. Fast forward a bit, and after a few weeks, she says she deleted her apps and disabled her profiles. And I say, I did the same, I deleted them. So, at a friend's work Christmas party, people keep asking what I look like and what I do. Now, we are friends on Facebook, but those pictures are heavily curated to show me with my daughter or me in a well-dressed and buttoned-down scenario. I guess she wanted the spicier photos with good angles, not me giving swim instructions to a 4-year-old. So she re-downloads the dating app and re-enables her profile, assuming my stuff is still in her messages. And then boom, not only is my profile still on there, but I had updated the pictures just after our first meeting. Also, mind you, it's about 3 in the morning and she's had one too many, and that's about when my phone goes off. I wake up to her saying, "So, you updated your profile after we met and after you said it was deleted? Whatever, dude, I guess it's okay." And at this point, I'm just confused. I immediately Googled why my dating app profile is still there, even after I deleted it. And yeah, you guessed it. This is a massive fail on my end. And I very quickly found out that just because I deleted the application, it didn't mean that I had taken down my profile. And this wasn't just the dating app that I met this girl on. Literally all the dating apps that I had been on were all still up. So now I'm sitting here sleepless, having done as much damage control as possible, with a girl of my dreams who thinks I'm a serial dater at worst or a straight up lurker at best. I'm pretty sure she probably blasted me to her friends, which I was hoping to meet very soon. So yeah, I messed up pretty bad, and I think I screwed this one up beyond repair. Yeah, that definitely really sucks. You finally get with a woman that you're absolutely in love with and that you really connect with in some kind of way, only for her to get the wrong impression from you pretty much from the get-go. And that really sucks because you finally met someone that you really do like, and it's all probably gonna go up in smoke right before your eyes. So I think maybe explaining to her what happened and saying, hey, it's not what you think. This is all a misunderstanding, and this is why this is
Yeah, that's gonna be the end of this live stream. I'd say it was not productive, considering I've been streaming for nearly 3 hours and only getting this little bit here and this done. Pretty counterproductive, if I do say so myself. Hopefully, if I do end up live streaming tomorrow, hopefully it's a lot more productive. But as of right now, I am out of here. Goodbye, and I will see you guys in the next one. And if it's not tomorrow, then it's either gonna be